We got 3 scoops.
All right.
Too smooth.
Yeah, I didn't pull it off right at the right time, but no worries. We're here, and we have a guest, a special guest, the man on a mission, the podcast extraordinaire man, Dr. Zach Loughman. How you doing?
Hi, y'all? I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
The crawdaddy.
Yeah. My other life.
I don't know. So we usually talk about do you drink coffee, Zach? Are you
Do I drink coffee?
Guy? Yeah.
I mean, I do drink coffee. I don't know a damn thing about coffee, though.
That's okay. You drink it, though.
What I know about coffee is that I like cheap coffee. I don't like swanky coffee.
Interesting.
So I go to a local convenience store, and that's the coffee that I drink.
Okay,
so that's
enough.
me.
Do you put things in it, or do you drink it black?
Black.
Yeah. Like Riley's soul.
No, I'm a pansy. I add a lot of crap to make it sweet.
Well, that explains how you can handle the cheap shit. Because if you drank
it
black, you'd be like, why is it burned dirt?
Yeah. Oh, it definitely tastes like burned dirt. That's the way I prefer it to be.
All right.
But no, I put like creamer in there and some sugar, stuff like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I have we're getting to the point now where we're getting recommended coffee, and Jacob Crook sent me a message telling me to try this Sump coffee.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah, you had to order that online. It's the Costa Rican stuff. It's pretty good. It says it tastes like dark chocolate and dark ripe fruits. I don't know about that, but
I need more
it's
coffee.
Delicious.
Riley's just getting started. Well, I've been on Kawaii Coffee vanilla macadamia nut. So I usually don't buy flavored beans. You know, I kind of just want to taste the beans, not things put on my beans. But this was gifted to me, and I'm not one to waste the beans. And it's been pretty good. Not bad.
Yeah.
It smells like the things that it says it's going to taste like, and then it tastes like burnt dirt. But I guess it's like the is there a word for that, PhD, that when you smell something and then you taste it because you smell it?
Well, you're chemorecepting it just like a snake.
And
look at that.
Yeah, it's chemoreception.
Touching your inner snake. I get it. Okay.
So I am a snake, and
were you born in Year of the Snake? I was.
No, I'm a rat, unfortunately.
Ooh, that's a tough. You're low on the totem pole, buddy.
Yeah, 1996, Year of the Rat.
Yikes.
1996. That was a good year for me.
Me too.
That's the year I met Eddie Van Halen.
And as soon as your eyes locked, I emerged.
That's right.
You're a product of that energy.
Speaking of Eddie Van Halen, in that genre and era, R.I.P. Meatloaf.
Did Meatloaf die?
Oh yeah, he did.
Oh.
Yep.
Rest in peace.
Yesterday or day before that happened?
I think it was today.
I think it was today. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, back to coffee.
Yeah. So fire up your ovens, cook up a meatloaf in his honor.
So what's up
with me?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah,
guest of honor.
Not much. Semester started, as Lucas is aware.
Oh shit! Really?
Currently, yeah. So
Lucas, log back in, get back to
class.
down.
Exactly. Until May, but no, good things are happening. Rumation's full swing for me since I'm the resident Cobra guy, but I do have Marilia in the garage right now. I'm giving a go at a pair of poplins and a pair of coastals. And I have seen
one of us.
I've seen lots in the poplins. I've seen cuddling in the coastals.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm just seeing what will happen. I have govies too, and I have this bank of enclosures in there that are these big, nice, custom-made PVCs in the garage. And it got too cold for the water cobras that live in those PVCs.
Oh, really?
So I pulled them out, brought them up here to school for the wintertime. And then I had gobies in there and I was like, okay, so I can get these things up to like 78, 80 degrees in the day. And they drop right down to 60, like repeatedly. And I thought, all right, cool. Well, we have the Morelia up here. I actually have a bunch of IJs are right there, or poplins, whatever you want to call them, in my office. So I thought, what the hell? And I think I'm gonna get eggs from the poplins. I'm not sure about the coastals though, so we shall see.
Nice.
Still got plenty of
where did
time
you
on
get-
those coastals.
Yeah,
Mine are locking up like right now as it's perfect timing. So I bet being East Coast, you're getting even better pressure fronts. So you're still in the prime time.
Oh yeah.
Hell
Yeah.
Izzy
I mean,
kicked our ass.
we're not even getting rain or anything right now.
No.
So
No.
Nice.
It seems like every other day is snow. I don't know.
Yeah, lately. And then what was bizarre is then when Christmas and New Year's, like that time period, everybody over here was like, oh, what the hell's happening? There's a high of like 68 and it should be 45 or 40. So this has just been a totally nutty winter so far.
It's like something's happening to the climate. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe
like it's getting warm or something.
I do have to ask before we roll past it. How cold was too cold for water cobras, and how did you determine that?
Nighttime drops are the most important thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, like you don't want the room to be holding at 40. That's bad. But when you start having habitual nighttime drops below 50 or at 50,
okay,
that is, they can survive that. They certainly get to that in Paraguay and Bolivia and places where they live. But at the same time, that's when I start to see respiratory infections pop, and I don't want to deal with that with them because they don't handle it well, and they just. I mean, they normally throw a fit when they don't like what's going on, and when
I wouldn't want to give a water cobra a shot.
Yeah, when they're sick, they're either like laying there, and every time you look at them, you're like, "Oh God, you're dead! Oh God, you're dead!" Like a reoccurring theme, or you get near them and they just don't want to have it, and it's tail whipping, projectile pooping, mock striking, the good stuff.
Yeah.
So I moved everybody up here that needed to, and they're fine. I do have one male though. To be honest, that I decided we'll just see what happens because he was tolerating it just fine. He's in the top part of the room, like up near the ceiling, so the drops weren't as strong. And he seems to be doing perfectly fine. But I have like a literal wall of hydrodynasties in there, so
sweet.
Moved him up here.
Now, is this your first season attempting to cycle and breed carpets, or have you done that before?
I've pulled it off twice. With the poplins, but that's the carpet that I like. I just think they're cool.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
Smart man up in this house.
I like the zogeography. I like the size. I like the color palette. They're just fun. And I got those to go in 2020 by moving them upstairs. And actually, now that I think about it, doing the window trick in a room that we have here that nobody was using. And then last year, graduate student, now keeper at St. Louis, Alex Schmacht, who's a Morelia head. He came on here and was a keeper here for our collection. And they basically was like, hey, I've got poplins. If you cycle them and you get them to go, they're yours. And so he got a pair, the other pair that I have to go and drop. And then this year, this is the first time I'm trying it in my house. So I just brought them home for the wintertime. And we tried coastals last year and they didn't go. And we tried Bredli have actually been a pain in our ass. You would think with me being able to get them cold that they would have gone. But we just our males had no game whatsoever. So
they didn't want to play with my thesis.
No, and you needed them to play for your thesis too. And
I was counting on them.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, though, are you, we talk about the periods of time during the year where we do initiate these cycles and go through the different phases of it. Are you lining up your cycles at the same time frame with your colubroids and your pythons? Or are you starting some earlier, some later, or is it different cold points? But how about timing wise?
I pretty much line them all up. I do a lot of cycle feeding with everybody. So in the late August through September, I'm just pounding the hell out of them with rats. But outside of that, it's kind of a sparing diet. When they come out of brumation, I hit them with some rats. But that seems to be a major contributor, I think, to the success, because with the poplins, we were doing that because they're in my office and I have complete control. The coastals are in the general collection of the university here, and I can tell people to do that, but telling people to do something and them actually doing it is two completely different things. So when I was looking at the food records, we weren't really doing what we needed to do on the food end. So this year I kind of took the bull by the horns with the coastals and was like, I literally want more coastals for the collection. And I thought we have a beautiful male of Rockhampton. That's the male. And then our female, we think is a Rockhampton. We bought her that way, but she doesn't really show that kind of Rockhampton swollen head, narrow snout. And I'm pretty sure that when we got her, we just got her because somebody wanted to make a couple extra $100 at the time. So anyway, but those animals will stay here. And if any of them leave, I'm going to totally tell people like, these are probably coastal mutts, but they're still nice coastals. So there you go. But no, we'll see what ultimately comes of that. Yeah, that would be a new subspecies on my breeding record, though. So
nice.
I'm rooting for them.
Do you have a total number of species that you've bred?
Yeah. It's not as high as one might think because I haven't really done this breeding thing with the snakes till the past 5 years, and it's almost all entirely the colubroid side of the fence. But I think I'm probably sitting at somewhere between a dozen and 15 species.
That's good.
After this year, if all the colubrids go, it's going to probably be, if you like use subspecies as your metric, I'm definitely going to be pushing 25, 30 without any problem whatsoever, because I've got a lot of taxa I've never really tried. They're all North American colubrids, but I have a student so we're testing the idea that you hear everybody talk about, where if you cook an egg at a colder temperature longer, you're supposed to get bigger babies.
Right.
Everybody says that. But I, of course, being me, was like, all right, well, I'm going to go find the reference for that. I was actually looking for the reference for that as an example of like how herpetoculture is based on fact when I wrote that paper, the natural history paper, because I thought this has to be out there somewhere. It doesn't exist in the published literature. I tried to find it. Yeah, and I would talk to zoo people, and like everybody talks about it, and it's in people's spreadsheets, but it's not in a paper with peer-reviewed source. So I thought, well, hell, that's like the coolest master's thesis ever. We just get to breed a bunch of snakes. So, and it justifies doing that. So, one of my current students, that's her thesis, and we did it last. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag because we got the first round of data. I will simply say my response to that data was, huh. So,
yeah, fair enough.
But
well, that could certainly go either way.
Yeah, I wanted it to be.
Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. I wanted it to be 2 years in case there was something in the water or the air, whatever. That's just being good. So last year I spent the better part of the summer trying to acquire as many pairs of adult breeder colubrids as I could.
Nice.
Last year, you guys in your holiday show, you always like air your grievances. I know we're past that point, but I'm going to air a grievance. I think that if you are in the business of selling snakes, you should know how to sex a goddamn snake, because I bought so many pairs that ended up being
go.
males. I've got I literally have 6 male California king snakes right now and 2 females, and I'm supposed to have 4.4. So it drives me insane that people do that.
I had a similar problem, but it was on the opposite end of the spectrum. The problem is I couldn't keep most of them. So are you familiar with the MIA line of jungles that has made its way into the States? Yeah. So I got into the first wave of that, and I get my pair in, set them up in quarantine. A couple months into quarantine, I decided to finally double check the gender. Turns out I have 2 females. Which normally would be like, sweet, I'll just, let them know, hey man, these are 2 females. can I just buy another male? But at the price tag, I couldn't do that. So it was like, you send me a mail, I'll just send this back when it's convenient, sort of thing. Send it back, get the next one in, check it when it comes in, female. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm like, can we do this again? Sends me another female. Guys, like, I'm not upset, but like we could be done. And eventually the fourth time was the charm, and I finally got my mail. But
how does that happen?
Then after that, I go to get a couple popwin carpets, a pair, and like same thing, 2 females. I'm like I check almost every time now, and I was like, look, I'm not upset, but I was really hoping to get a pair because of this line, and I want to, that was the point of buying them, and can I buy a male as well? And that worked out. I'm getting a male now, but still, I was like that was the theme of me buying animals last year. Is like they're all missexed.
Yeah, all of them. In my case, what was happening is with Cali Kings adults. If you don't, I've learned this because I don't keep Cali Kings, but I was like, California king snakes are relatively easy to breed. For this study, they're a perfect snake to be included in this because hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them have been produced in herpetoculture. So, it's a standard, if you will. And what was happening is I was getting adults. And with the adults, if you don't express the musk glands that go back into the tail, that musk becomes impacted in kind of like toothpaste. So what happens is when you put the probe in, it pinches off that sulcus where the hemipene is. So you go like 3-4 scales deep, it stops, and then you're like, it's a girl. And so but you can visually look at colubrids though, lots of them, and see that really wide tail. So the first time it happened, I probed it here, literally at my desk, and it went 3 or 4 scales deep. But I was looking at the damn thing. I was like, there's absolutely no way. There's no way that this is a female. So I put it in some warm water and massaged that gunk out of the musk gland. And as soon as I did that, expressed those glands, the probe went right in. Like, son of a bitch. So that was the first one. And then getting the people that I was dealing with to like believe me, because they're like, oh no, I probed that. It's female. I'm like, no, it's not. I had to literally like set up my phone on here and videotape me probing the damn snake to show them, like, because they didn't trust what I was saying. So most of the people ultimately either gave me a different species of snake I was looking for, and I got pairs, but I'm still sitting at way too many male Cali Kings. But yeah, no, that's my number one herpetoculture grievance of 2021. And I don't want to buy, like, I'm done. I just don't want to buy after the number of purchases I had to do for this individual's thesis and dealing with people. I'm like, no, don't want any more new snakes. I just want to like ride where we're at right now. I'm happy.
Right.
I'm getting things from people I know what they're doing. Like that's just what, if I'm getting anything. So yeah.
As a side tangent to that, I learned this year that you can palpate and feel hemipenes in baby corns, baby kings, a lot of those little things. I was like, oh shoot, so you mean I don't even have to do that with my meat sausages and like, you know what I mean? Like that's a relief. And now I can just sit there and go, bink, boy, girl, and just like bink, 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 move on.
Very
love it. Love it.
Nice. Bink, bink.
Bink, 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 bink. Although right now I would have problems. I've got like expanding foam crust all over my fingers.
From foam. Yes.
Yeah, I should not be allowed to sex baby snakes right now. My fingers are not friendly.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Gotcha.
I've been working on a tank build. I've got expanding foam and like, I've got expanding foam and mortar all over there. It's like, it does not feel good. My hands are beat up. Building tanks is fun, but your hands take a beating.
They do.
Wear gloves. Don't be like me. PSA.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Words to live by.
Okay. So I don't know. What are we talking about? What are we gonna?
Whatever y'all want to, man.
Well, you see, here on Carpets and Coffee, the one thing we never have is a plan.
That's all good.
We throw at the wall to see what sticks.
Yes,
I do have.
yes.
I do have.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, please. Okay, I'll go. So we we're talking. Eric and I were talking on last week's episode, and we talked a bit about your brumation bonanza, and kind of highlighted that we might dig into that with you a little bit while we have you here,
Sure.
captive audience. So, Eric, is that where you were going as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
So listening to that, I think I maybe messaged this to you as you guys got me thinking, and I sort of went down this rabbit hole with diamond pythons and trying to figure out how they breed and doing all the, looking at the temperatures and all that kind of stuff, weather spark, all the stuff.
Yes.
And, I was looking at it and I was wondering, is there any thought to snakes in general, inducing them to breed by how fast the temperature drops? Not the fact that it drops, but like how fast that temperature goes from what would be a normal temperature to low temperature.
Got what you're saying. Assuming that you cleared them out, I think that, now granted, we're talking about 2,500 plus species of animals. So if the metric is snake, there's almost certainly going to be a proportion of snakes that's a trigger. And so then you got to think about where would that be an advantageous trigger. So I would argue that that's probably going to be an advantageous trigger in an environment that's unstable, where you basically are going to be going from, ideal to above ideal temperatures, and then you're going to crash real quick. So if that's the case, having a trigger where you have a drop real quick might induce those hormone cascades we're talking about much faster. But it's going to have to be, from an evolutionary perspective, it's going to have to be an animal that lives in an ecological system where that's part of the equation. So
Gotcha.
Places where animals that I could, like snakes off the top of my head, have no clue if this is actually true. And if Nipper listens to this, he's going to have something to say. But I could see,
he always does.
I could see adders in Europe being an example of a taxa where that would happen. Because if you're, up in, I think that they make it up into Scandinavia, like Holland, Norway, places like that, you're going to have those. You got summer, winter.
Right.
So like you don't have the luxury of necessarily summer, fall, winter. So temperate colubrids could do that as well. Like the red-sided garter snakes, absolutely, up in Manitoba. But red-sided garter snakes, same subspecies in Kansas, probably not going to be as big a trigger. Now, I have thought, the funny thing that I've learned about now that I do podcast is that you actually don't ever stop thinking about them after you create them.
No.
So I have now that I did the brumation bonanza, it is literally, I have not stopped.
You made a hard word.
Yes. I can't stop. So, because on the flip side of that is the guest we had last week, Chad Fuchs, who's in Wisconsin.
That was a great show.
Yeah. Well, Chad's like, don't brumate them. Keep them 78 year round. I'm like,
that was
what the hell?
Pump the brakes.
I love that.
No,
like
my
son
mind
of a
was
bitch.
So he had taxa that like are from more northern climates that are doing that, and he has stuff from Florida. I could totally see, like, if you're breeding Florida king, I'm Colubra guy, so we'll go with the kings. If you're breeding Florida king snakes, Florida kings are basically kind of like diamonds. I know it gets colder where diamonds live than Florida, but at the same time, I think the main temperature cue for something like that is going to be your night drop. It's not going to be your daily temperature, okay? So if you're keeping those in your house in Wisconsin and you're holding it at like 78, whether we want to admit it or not, that rack that they're living in, it's still getting a temperature flux to some degree, and it's probably just enough of one of those triggers to make them start the process. So I don't have a problem seeing like those things breed, but like thinking about other species that he has, if he has California king snakes that are from further north in California, and he mentioned Mexican black kings and some of in the desert. You've been to the desert. It's not hot all the time. It's hot then cold, then hot then cold. Like that's literally part of a desert. So it's going to be getting those like cold night drops, and probably cold during the day. Yeah, so I would think biologically, Mexican black king snakes probably need that. But he's flat out said, I produce a bunch of them. perfect first starter snake. He did that whole diatribe, so we know that that's a taxa that he's breeding without any kind of major temperature drop. So I have literally, I just was like Mr. Burn Fingers after hearing all this stuff. I'm like, we're doing master's degrees on this stuff. Like, we're literally, this is not something that I'm going to just be like, oh, well, because I want to know the answer. I want to know, like, do you get that hormone cascade we talked about without the temperature? Because the scientists have done the studies and they show, which we talked about in the episode, that the temperature drop is the main thing that elicits the freaking response. But in herpetoculture, we're not dropping the temperature. So then you got to think about this a little bit more. These are not necessarily the snakes I'm talking about from those journal articles, because the snakes I'm talking about from those journal articles were being plucked out of the wild.
Correct.
We have animals that are in domestication, and we're breeding the ones that make it, and the ones that don't. And we might actually be breeding this process out of them through selective breeding, which is really kind of interesting.
For sure, right? But then the question just becomes, how many generations does it take for that to be significant? I would, in my mind, I feel like there's no question that we're artificially selecting for a simplification or an easing 100%. Of that cycle for reproduction. Yeah.
But no. So no, I'm all over. And I've heard people say, I don't brumate my snakes and I get more animals, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, the biology based off wild animals clearly demonstrates that they need the temperature cue. So then we bring them into captivity. This might be one of the areas where the anthropogenic captive environment is quite literally changing them. And this makes sense, because if you look at like a dachshund and a wolf, they ain't the same thing. And that's a product.
That's hanging out with me today.
Yeah, that's a product of of us selectively breeding them. So breeding dogs.
There's a gentleman locally to me who you guys might be familiar with. He used to do the Herp Nation radio with Nick. I think his name is Scott Austin. Does that sound right, Eric?
It's got something.
Yeah. I think he's local to me.
Right? No. Okay.
Yeah, I might have his last name wrong. Scott something. Anyway, he's local to me, and he's an infrequent customer of mine at the shop, and I got to talking to him one day, and that's how I found out who he was. And he's like, "No, yeah, I don't temperature cycle my Bredli at all."
Like, what the hell?
Like, I'm sorry, what?
Are you sure?
He's like, yeah, I don't. And
do you know that they're having
that it does get cold. So like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe you don't intentionally like drop your heat and your stat, but I don't know any of the details about his room or any of that. Scott's, and you're saying Scott Waters. That might be him. I'm not sure. You guys would know better than I. But yeah, he swears he breeds them without temp cycling them, and I'm like, what? The Funkin' Wagnalls?
What? There are triggers that we have no clue are triggers.
100%. Yeah,
absolutely no way we know all the triggers. We can think we know the triggers, but if you know the animals, you can't be that arrogant. There's something going on that they are picking up
even
on.
When we're not intentionally manipulating the temperatures, just by virtue of outside's temperatures fluctuating, there's not enough insulation in the average household or whatever to prevent any sort of barometric pressure or anything from getting through to those animals. They are finely tuned biological things that can pick that up. So,
and I've heard people talk about how, like, well, when they're in a house, the house is sealed off, and they're not feeling those barometric pressure changes. And anybody that gets a headache when storms roll in, that's inside, is directly feeling the impact of those barometric pressure changes.
We talked about that last week. Unless you're living in a cabin pressure controlled airplane fuselage, your roof is not fixing pressure.
Me and Rob talk about this all the time, and it's like, we just make up a number, 5, 6, 7, 8 triggers. You have to hit 3 of them in order for this species to breed. You have to hit 5 of them for this species to breed. Some of them are more, you know what I mean? I don't know. The cosmic octopus. As we call it.
So that's my thoughts on that.
No, there's.
Very
I think even people who don't intentionally manipulate their stuff, their animals are picking it up wherever you live. Some places more dramatic than others, of course, right? Like more northernly and southerly hemisphere areas probably get much more dramatic swings than stuff closer to the equator.
Yeah, I think what kind of triggered my thought with that is like it seems like more and more. I'm assuming Zach, you go through this too, but it seems like we don't have fall or spring anymore. Well, it's just winter and then it's summer. It's hot and it's cold. So is that affecting those wild snakes?
Interesting fact: in the 80s, that is exactly what the climatologist predicted was going to happen now. So the most drastic, from an ecological perspective, climate change is not going to impact your two primary seasons as much as it's going to impact your transition seasons.
Right.
And the impact it was predicted to have is the elimination of transition seasons. And that's why animals don't evolve to have triggers that are based off of like weather. A lot of animals have evolved daylight hitting retinas tells them it's March or February or January because we can have however warm it wants to be on December 28th this year in Wheeling, West Virginia. I think that was our day. It got up to 70, which is completely unheard of.
Yeah.
Right.
The amount of light that was hitting the Earth at this latitude was the same as it was for the past umpteen million years.
Right.
So but the fun fact is like, well, what the hell is that going to do to all these animals at temperate latitudes that require these triggers as part of the reproduction?
That was exactly what I wanted to lead into today is kind of expand on the idea of in our changing world. And if you don't believe that it's changing, you may kindly go read a book and then return to this podcast. But in that future scenario that we are staring down the barrel of, what do you foresee happens to species that require these seasonal shifts in temperature to cycle properly? Are we going to see reduced reproduction, in your opinion, in species where they do need to be cold and perhaps they are not getting cold enough or for long enough under a new era of climate? And also just, of course, highlighting the point that it's all happening too fast for adaptation to occur. It's happening at a rate where they aren't just going to be able to be like, all right, don't need that anymore in half a generation.
So there have been plenty of studies that have already started looking at this with different animal groups. And this is why it's important to have population variability. So in a given population of animals, you have some that are going to breed at cooler temperatures. You have some that aren't going to breed until they're at warmer temperatures. And then you got the middle part of the population that's going to kind of breed in the Goldilocks zone. Okay. As that Goldilocks zone shifts one way, what ends up happening is if it ends up shifting warm, which was this way, I think, it's going to shift towards warm. Now warm is going to become average and it's not going to become an extreme. So what we end up seeing is that you see like initial declines in some species, but then evolution shows up, fitness does a round that we talk about, and we're going to see adaptations to evolve at these warmer temperatures. So, but it's not going to happen overnight, like you said. And there might be some taxa that just can't do it. So we don't know what the overall response is going to be. But like,
sorry, go ahead.
There was a study done with, and all animals are going to respond to climate change in totally different ways.
Exactly.
So there was a paper done with rattlesnakes in California. I think that was last year, where they literally modeled the effect of climate change on Organis, I think it was.
Okay.
And it basically said, as California warms up, as long as we don't all cook in a fire, we're going to, like the world is becoming beautiful for rattlesnakes. That's what the conclusion was.
Okay.
So like this is a species that's going to benefit. To go back to my crayfish world, they did the exact same climactic scenario for all North American crayfishes. We have over 400 of them here. And they basically determined climate change isn't really now I'm going to be very careful how I say this. It is not a major threat. That does not mean it's not a threat. Okay. Because when you look at where the crayfishes live, they live at low elevation, high elevation, and they got a variation of temperature. So they'll be able to kind of fluctuate with that. Where you see the most impact is in like our extreme habitats.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
That's when everybody knows this. You know, how many people have watched TV and then Sarah McLachlan comes on and there's a like starving floating polar bear. Like, you know, there's a reason why you
An
don't
empty
see.
Coke can.
Yeah, exactly.
Species that cannot migrate to higher elevations or latitudes.
Yeah, they can't. There is no Goldilocks zone because if you think about those animals, they're all over here at a far end. That's the Goldilocks zone. So, but the bigger issue with climate change is with like organisms we don't even think about, like plants. Everybody thinks about the animals. Plants are kind of the redheaded stepchildren of biology, and if we don't have them, we kind of die. So there's that. But that's where the real danger comes, because with the climatic changes, that's what determines like whether you're in a rainforest or a subtropical dry forest. And with these climate changes, you change the precipitation. Now you've got dry forests moving into rainforests. The forest community shifts. And now all those tropical reptiles, doesn't matter where the hell, like they can't live there. So now you see the extirpation. So that's like where the main focus should be, is on the habitat.
Yeah,
itself,
broader
not
scale.
necessarily on like individual tax. That's the danger in climate change, is the quite literal shift in elimination of these habitats, which then leads to everything else dying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, perhaps a very good time to look into buying real estate on Greenland or Antarctica for when it is the nice 70-degree suburban paradise.
I find this show to be very ironic. This is actually something that I was sitting on
Because
my
of
couch with my son.
the coffee angle.
Yeah. Well, not. So on the Weather Channel, they have a show now about finding gold in Greenland.
Uh-oh.
And the whole premise to the show is this was all ice, and there's no more ice.
Virgin ground, baby.
No one's ever gotten gold. And I'm kind of like, isn't that a weird show to put on the Weather Channel? Like, it's literally like celebrating the ice is gone.
Babe, get the shovel.
But
if
anyway,
we tell them there's gold here, well, they won't pay attention to the fact that the Earth is dying.
Exactly.
Yeah. The irony is abound. Yeah. Do you guys watch Don't Look Up before we go on to Plants?
That was so good.
Catch that? Good movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of irony in that movie with today's society.
It was very, very insightful. But anyway, Plants.
Is that why the BBC is about to put out another like a Planet Earth series with plants?
Yes. Yes.
I'll tell you what. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Life. I think it was Life. The Life series where they did the plants.
Yep.
Holy crap,
man. Amazing.
That was cool.
No.
You know?
The problem with plants is that they're doomed to hold our attention. I can't keep my students to focus for like a minute.
You got to do everything in super fast time lapse.
Yeah, exactly.
Plants aren't sexy. Plants aren't sexy.
Yeah,
until you see an awesome time lapse of like a fern, like going from like an icicle to back to green, and then all of a sudden just life. You're like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. The plants are, I agree. Plants are super underrated. We've got a whole wall of fish tanks at the shop, and I seeded all the sumps with pothos.
Nice.
I went into the back to clean one day just to like kind of go through some stuff. And the vines have Jumanji'd themselves into this rope of like, it's like an inch thick. Like I can't cut through it, and it's coming out the side, and the stalk looks like it's growing every day, and there's huge leaves, and it's going to take over the whole fish room. And I love it because it's just thriving off all the phosphorus and the ammonia and all the crap in the sump and everything from the fish. And people love it. And I think, ironically enough, as the planet is dying faster and faster every day as we're killing it, the reptile hobby is becoming more and more enthusiastic about the bioactive plant, natural keeping side of things. It's this total like, let's murder our planet and put little slices of it in our living room.
Well, I don't think that's I think that's correlated. I don't think that's non-correlated. But plants are definitely a blind spot in terms of our admiration for them, but also like all the discussion about endangered species. Endangered plant species probably dwarf the amount of established endangered animals.
Oh, 100%.
And just nobody notices. It's, you know, like your garden, like what percentage of your front yard is supposed to be there?
Or
Maybe
every
less than
species that's
1%?
endemic to the island of Madagascar.
Right.
Like every
like the
island
invasive
species.
you know, all the
Yeah.
invasive species too. You think of like
It would drive me absolutely insane. And Zach, you'll remember these days earlier in your career when you did environmental consulting, but when I had to keep a log of every endangered plant species I saw on a site in a day, I gave up. I ran out of paper and I gave up. And I'm like, it's like it's French broom, Scottish broom, broom, so much broom. It's like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
But
Not good.
yeah, I don't know. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess. With plants, well, not out of sight, but nobody gives a shit, like you're saying.
99% of people aren't smart enough to discern species of plants. So
I'm not either. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah,
well,
no.
I'm not saying I am, but there are people who have done the work, and there are dichotomous keys, and there are ways to figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, so the thing about we can segue to herping, because if you understand plants, here's what plants tell you as a naturalist / herper / you call it whatever you are. Plants are intimately honed into micro habitats. So if you're reading a book about a lizard in the desert Southwest and you learn that it needs, you know, a certain amount of moisture, a certain amount of humidity and blah, blah, blah. And then you learn the plant that needs that same amount of humidity. If you're out herping and you start looking for the giant plant where the little lizard lives, you can massively cut down, you know, be more efficient in the field, because then you're just bouncing from bush to bush to bush, and you know not all bushes are created equal. Over here in the east, we have salamanders. That's where, like, everybody knows snakes for me, but my very close second behind them are salamanders. And there's several species of salamanders that live here in Appalachia where you learn, okay, this thing called elephant ear, which is a type of lichen, technically isn't a plant, but whatever. Yeah, it responds to the amount of moisture. So when the elephant ear is out on the rock face, that's when you look for green salamanders. And when it's not out, you don't look for green salamanders that day. And when I was in grad school, we would go on all these freaking trips to find damn green salamanders, and we're climbing mountains and doing all this shit. And we're like, they have to be here. The rocks are here. Well, because the elephant ear wasn't out, I figured out inevitably that, like, that is the total indicator of whether the Aeneades are going to be out near the opening of the crevice or way back down in the rocks, because they need a certain window of
That's amazing
of humidity. But like you learn those little cues, and it makes you just a better herper.
That's
it's
awesome.
funny you say that. I bought this book. It's called How to Read Nature for that exact reason. You know?
There you go.
Yeah.
It's
great.
No,
oh, man.
Around here when the serviceberry trees bloom, I know that queen snakes have come out. That is, they are tied, like literally tied. We usually find that we get our first peak in captures right around that time period, because the trees are cued into the exact same environmental cue that the snakes cued into, which is basically, all right, it's springtime, but we need to have a certain number of degree days, i.e. it needs to be warm during the day, cold during at night. When they get that right combination, they bloom. That also is what the snakes are looking for to leave the hibernacula. So, you know, but learning how to read all that stuff and everything, like we don't talk about that on herping forums. You know what I'm saying? But that's just what comes with experience, you know, and broadening your horizons a little bit to look at other things.
Yeah. And everything's connected, right? I mean, that's why, like, when folks tell me that they're gung-ho about birds, you know, like I'm not, but I bet you could connect these dots and you can always learn something from something else in one environment. Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, if you want to learn about a species, then also look at what their prey species is.
Yeah.
Follow what they're doing, and you know, and then you go down another rabbit hole, and
it's endless. It never ends.
You're like, what?
Yep.
That's great.
No, it's good stuff.
Oh, sorry. I was reading the.
Yeah.
Huh?
I was reading this, doing bonsai.
The plant side of things is really interesting. I think it gets overlooked in a big way in the snake world. because most people are putting together a small closed system for their animals. And by small, I'm not saying everyone's keeping them in tiny little boxes, but like even a lavish enclosure for a snake is still a closed system. And by closed system, I mean you're not getting nutrient, soil exchange, light exchange, all the things that nature provides to kind of keep that cycle turning over and healthy. So it's one of those things where, like, in the hobby, snake keepers are like, well, my snake's just going to flatten it. They're not going to do it all unless we're talking like chondros or something to stay up off the ground. Other facets of the hobby really utilize it to their benefit. Dart frog keepers, any frog keepers, gecko keepers, things like that. I mean, at work, I've got a couple tanks with ferns and all sorts of stuff growing all over the place. I can't even see the frogs until I've sat in there and misted the enclosure for a good 2-3 minutes. And then they're like, okay, we're getting raw foods coming. And then they run up to the front and I can see them and feed them because that's what they're used to. It's very different as far as our application to snakes, but it's one of those things that because we don't do it in our enclosures here, we don't think about it, we don't see it, it's out of sight, out of mind until you go herping or until you work with the different taxa that is sort of just something that comes with the territory. Essentially, you I mean, let's be real, you can't just throw a dart frog in a tank with paper and a water bowl and like, it's good. It's got room, it's wet, it's the right temperature, there's a water bowl, like it's not the same. So until you start, kind of opening your doors to all those other things, it's one of those things that is very much out of sight, out of mind. And until you start experimenting with it or throwing a light on that animal or throwing something in there, you just don't think about it. And I think nowadays with podcasts and everything right at our disposal, everybody's sort of experimenting, figuring all this cool stuff out. And I think there's a lot more questions coming up, but that's great because that means, more, what do they call it? More job security, more hobby security, I guess. Mm-hmm. More avenues to explore. So,
yeah, I have. So my favorite plant on planet Earth is pothos. I love it to death.
Yep.
Because it will get to the absolute like I've looked at pothos before and been like, there's dead and then there's you, and then and I take that thing out of an enclosure and I soak it for a day or two. It's almost like just seeing if it will come back, and they always seem to come back.
You can't kill pothos.
I started at home. I have a whole bunch of animal plastics. I think they're T15s. I don't know what the hell they are. They're 4 foot long by 2 foot deep, and I think they're 15 inches tall. They're like more than a foot, but they're not. I don't think
probably T10s.
T10s, that's it. And I have a wall of them in my office, and I have a bunch of like colubrids that are more dainty, not the big heavy body guys. Like I tried keeping them with false water cobras, and that was laughable once they became the giant behemoths that they are now. But I have them in with my Barons racers, and I have the pothos in with Nerodia, and I have them in with garter snakes, and I even have them in with some king snakes. And I finally figured out like how to keep them alive as far as the keeper error of me forgetting that it is a plant that requires water, which is a problem. And at the same time making it so that the snakes don't just slither them to death.
Yep.
And what I started to do is I would just buy the $7 cheapo pothos plant at Walmart or Lowe's. And then at Lowe's in particular, where they have the house plants, they have these clear plastic water dishes. Yep. And I get the dish that's like way bigger than the actual pot. The pot's like that diameter, and the dishes are like a foot across and about 3 or 4 inches tall. And then what I have done in all their enclosures is I have Reptile Basics hides that are black plastic, and I put the hide in a corner, and then I put that water dish on top of the hide, put the pothos in there, and fill that dish up with water. And that is almost always underneath a light. In that system, I only have to add water to the plant once every 2 or 3 weeks, which means when I forget to water the damn thing, that soil is so saturated, it gives it another 2 weeks before it dries out. So I'm able to keep up with it. By using that real simple strategy, my cages look like awesome because the pothos naturally does the thing. And I threw a whole bunch of branches and different size diameter branches in there. And the pothos is going up and around and dropping down the air roots, which is cool. And I've also noticed that the snakes absolutely use that stuff as cover. So like the Baronii, it's really cool to watch them in that. I have one blue female in one of these things. She will only go where the vines are. Like when she leaves the main pot, the plant is where she hangs out during the day, but she'll like slither out, and the main, like you said, the Jumanji effect, all the vines kind of coalesce in one area.
They find each other.
Yeah, they find each other. And but the snake is like cueing in on a natural behavior. And it's just so incredibly badass to look in that cage and watch the snake doing like what it would be doing in Paraguay. And that when I keep, that's what I want to do. I don't care how other people keep, but that's what I want to see in my animals. And the Nerodia, they do the same. Nerodia love light, like they love to bask. And I give them the option of like, they can bask. They have a hide. That's the same thing. Black hide box, pothos in the water dish. And I keep all my males because they're smaller in one enclosure, and they're never in the damn hide. They're always in the pothos. And they've actually burrowed down into the dirt of the pothos plant. And so they're actually like in the root wad of the pothos, which is really interesting because I've totally found them that, doing that in
That's
nature.
cool.
So they're not even using the damn hide. I mean, I've even contemplating just getting rid of the hide, but it adds some complexity to the enclosure. So it's probably going to stay. But no, that really easy setup, I've been able to keep them alive. But you're right. It's not made for everything. I tried with the enclosures that are here in my office. The big water cobras are like right there. And I thought, okay, I'll have nice big display enclosures.
Yeah,
the only thing that you can decorate with a false water cobra enclosure with is something that's already dead. Because they're going to quickly make it dead because they never stop moving. They were just obliterating the I tried a lot.
You want plants in there, you're stuck with fake plants for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I tried. It failed. I failed miserably.
I had a nice, really overgrown pothos plant in an enclosure for a ball python at the zoo out here. This is a 42-year-old animal that has like liver failure and everything. The dude would hide in the pothos plant when I let it get overgrown, and then I'd trim it. And one day I'd catch him up on like a branch, like 3 feet up, like dangling down like a chondro. But he would always hide in this pothos plant.
Yeah.
I just literally kept it in the pot, stuck it in with a bunch of stuff. It had soil beneath it, so the roots that grew out could still attain nutrients, and it just went bananas. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. No, so I can't say good things about pothos.
And if you keep monkey tail skinks, they can eat it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
That's the one reptile you can feed that to, as far as I know. Somebody could chime in and say there's another subspecies, but or species that does, but yeah, that's like their favorite treat. It's endemic to their islands. They love it. It's a great way to make friends with an angry monkey tail.
Yes.
They can be quite angry too.
They can be.
I have some very bad scars from monkey tails.
When they're angry, it's just the face they make is terrifying too. There's something with the eyes. I don't trust the eyes.
I absolutely love them. We have one at the shop that's been there for, well, Lucas, do you remember when we got that group in?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have the grouchy one.
Good.
He's fine with me. I pull him out. He's great with me. He bites anybody else. He's like super upset. I might have to take him home, I guess.
Yeah.
He's awesome, dude. I love him. I think it's a male anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do we got here?
I think you answered this question, but sure.
Well, you can do a modified version. It's not bioactive, but it's a cleanup crew. So I have used super worms for my cleanup crew. So I went to a show, bought 1,000 of them, came here in Pittsburgh, which is right up the road from me, and then stopped off at school before I got home and was literally like throwing fistfuls of super worms into the false water cobra enclosures. I don't even know how many were in there, but we had a raging super worm colony in their cages, and the snakes just did not give a crap. So whenever the beetles would show up, we would grab those, and we breed our own super worms.
Nice.
But when they become adults, the piles of poo are bigger than a toddler's. Like, it's impressive.
They don't smell good.
No, they don't. I literally had a grad student today come down, I ran into her, and she was like, I couldn't get it all into one hand. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, it crapped
Really?
so much, it took 2 hands to get it out of there. I was like, yeah. And that's our great big, that's one of our 7-foot females. So when they're little,
Wow.
you can, but when they become big, yeah. Oh no, they're next level.
Oh yeah.
I just tried to overhaul my falsy keeping, and I did like this mix of, well, so like the big one's going well, that I just upgraded the girl to a bigger enclosure, but the male, I just changed the substrate to a mix of like Reptus soil, what's it called, eco earth, cocoa stuff, some play sand, and some sphagnum, and I don't know, just made like a mix with leaf litter and stuff like that. And within like 2 days, it was too overrun with an entire ant colony that I had to pull all out and put them on paper towels until the ants go away. So that didn't work out for me. Just like when I tried to do that with my green tree.
Something about where you live has bad population of ants, I think.
The ants are terrible.
Yeah.
So sad for me.
Sad face.
Sad face.
Yeah, false water cobras. What a cool snake.
Yeah.
I want more.
I worked with them in Santa Barbara. They're fun. By the time I was on staff there, they only had a male. He bred the female to death. She broke her back.
Sounds right.
Yeah. I've since learned that that's not uncommon. We had him in a huge enclosure. I think it was like 5 feet tall. Had to have gone 9 feet long, and it had kind of a taper, so the entryway was like 3.5 feet, and then it narrowed to like 2.5 feet by the end. There was a built-in concrete pool, and we would pull him for cleaning because he would go to the bathroom in the pool. But he had a big log that he could drape across, and occasionally he would bask under some UVB. We had bark in there that he would burrow around, but he was fun, man. He was a great animal. Tons of personality, very lively, very on display. Always ate. Always left absolutely foul fecal deposits twice a week.
Yes.
And when I was the apprentice, I was always the guy hopping into the enclosure and having to squat and put my butt right up against the glass and like hose out the pool while on display in the zoo while it's open. So guests are coming up and poking me in the butt, and I'm like, clean. Yeah, it's good time. Good times. That's what false water cobras elicit for me, memory wise, is being ridiculed in the public and cleaning crap out of a pool.
There you go.
Sounds like
so
fun.
now I have Crebos.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's worse.
No, well, it's funny because there's always this like in the colubrid world, there's this weird competition that exists between Hydrodynastes and Drymarkin. Like,
are we foulest poops?
Yeah, and the competitions are weird because it's like, which one's crap smells the worst? Which one produces the worst, fecal display? I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. I've been seeing that too now that I'm in the indigo world a little bit.
Yep.
Well, I have yellowtails here, and I have the Hydrodynastes, and we have blacktails here. And I would say like my experience is the Crebos produce something that looks like pudding. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
The false water cobras is more solid, but it's just, in my opinion, like much more foul.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think
Crebos are not as bad as what people say.
No.
I think the diet plays a role too. If you're feeding your water cobras more than just rodents, just adding fuel to that fire of stench.
I will say that the feeding of fish is way overplayed. Like, I don't think it makes things that dramatically awful. It's already bad to begin with. I don't know anybody who's like, oh great, that snake shit smells wonderful. Like, that's just not a thing on the best day. So if you're getting to fish feeding and you're like, oh my God, where have I been? Like, yeah, really, where have you been?
Right.
You're cleaning the snake crap.
The only thing that I thought was gross is that I got a bunch of frog legs. I don't know what the hell was different about the frog legs. But I knew I did something bad with the frog legs because unfortunately for my wife, she has the best nose of anyone I've ever met in my life. And I don't smell anything. I'm nose blind to literally everything. And I know when it's bad when I like walk through the door and she's waiting for me in the kitchen. You can see straight into our kitchen, and she'll literally be like, "What did you do?" I'm like, okay. And I got one of those, and she's like, "I know nothing's dead, but that can't be alive either." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And it was the week that I got the I was able to order a whole bunch of pre-killed bullfrogs, but they were the whole frog, which was like awesome.
Oh,
And they were frozen for like days, weeks. So and it was like a one and done. They sent them to our local fish shop, and they ordered frog legs. They didn't order frogs. So when they got the whole frogs, they're like, we can't sell these. So I bought them all. But after that, no more frogs. So
when I did the frog legs, I didn't have a problem. When you remember, I had a bunch of bullfrogs too from an eradication project.
Mm-hmm. It might have been my animals, might have been those bullfrogs, might have been the fact the frogs were frozen. I don't know.
My falsies also just won't take trout. I hear people talking all the time about them loving the trout treat. I'm like, for trout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're all fickle. That's one of the things that's great about them is that like we talk in generalities, but all of my animals have their own quirks. Every single one of them. I have a male that will not eat from August until April, and he's going to get to the point where he looks like he's a skeleton with skin on it, and then he eats like incessantly until the end of July, and then he shuts off again.
Wow.
Like, what? And I have tried everything under the sun to get him not to do that, and it's just him. That's just what he does, and that's one of the fun things about that species to me is that there's like a generality to them, but if you actually have like more than one, you quickly learn their quirks. They absolutely have quirks. You talked about personalities. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We have my big female that I have, one of the three that I have that's pretty big. The biggest of them all is literally like a dog. Like I open up the cage door to let her cruise my office, and she just sticks like 18 inches of her head out of the cage, and she just hangs there for like the whole freaking day. And she just, she doesn't want to leave, I guess. I mean, she has the choice. She can leave. She couldn't. I got another one above her, another big female. I have to be careful because when I open the door, she has the worst feeding response of any animal. I don't know why she's above my head. I think about this all the time. I talk about it because I've almost gotten hit in the neck like 3 times.
Move her down a cage. Do a little rotation.
Yeah, she's out, and then she's gonna zoom around this office. She just doesn't stop moving for like hours. So that's when you start talking about enclosures for them. I don't really think there's like the ideal enclosure. I think you got to learn the animal, and then figure out what's the ideal enclosure for this particular snake.
Right.
That's one
something that active. I mean, it's going to use every inch you give it, regardless of the personality. At some point of the day, it's going to explore.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I've noticed that at least my 2 falsies seem to be pretty adept at climbing as well. So, why not?
They climb all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've got an edge on the Crebos in that regard. My Crebos are great at falling.
One of our build-in upstairs, we have branches.
Yeah.
And they will go 8 feet up into the branches and lay right underneath those heat lamps. And they give me a heart attack. These are my great big breeder males. They live together. Because I'll go in and do a quick glance in the enclosure. And we have it set up so that I can even see into the hides. And I'm like, oh, God, they're gone. And then I can't see up. So I'm like looking here everywhere. And then I invariably will open the door, get in that enclosure. And like multiple times, I spook them. And then boom, 6 feet of false water. I'm like, okay, you're cool, dude. You're here. That's happened a lot.
I've got a nice big tall 4x2x2 for my female Crebo, and she'll use this log that goes all the way up, but she doesn't like climb per se. She kind of goes and rests her head up, and that's about it. My male's in a 6-foot vision, and I frequently hear him, often on recordings like this, going up on this lip that vision cages have right here, and just falling and shaking the entire stack.
Yeah.
Every 7.5 feet of him is like, boom! Like, dude, it's been 8 years. You still haven't learned. You suck at climbing.
Well, this will tell you something. So I'm going to move my monitor. But if you look that framed picture right there, my diploma, and then this exo. So when I let the water cobras cruise the office, they can go wherever they want. Okay. And I was typing one day, and one of my students came in the office, and they were like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "What did I do?" And they're like, "The snake." And I turned around, and this 10 pound, 8 foot long female false water cobra was draped over that picture of a hydra on the damn diploma, and was like looking down at me.
Nice.
So there are these giant beastly animals, but they are.
Yeah.
Very
athletic.
Sounds like they're much better
hanging
climbers.
on there. This is crazy.
That's
and then
amazing.
when I went to grab her, though, she freaked out and then like crashed. I would have just like sat there. It would have been fine. But no. But then she kept doing it. She got caught in a loop, and that's where she wanted to be. Was up on the wall. It was crazy.
Do you ever get that on your, like, from undergrads on your Rate Your Professor page? Like, very nice guy, but let snakes run loose on campus. Like,
I haven't gotten that yet. No. What is fun with them, though, because they're all in my office, I don't know why we keep going back to poo, but it's just part of policies, is that I'll be here, like, meeting with a student, and the biology kids, they don't have any problem coming in here. They normally come in and they look at the animals. Every now and then, we might have somebody that isn't inclined towards animals that's kind of gun shy. But if I have, like, non-science people have to come into the office, that's fun because they won't breach the doorway, because this whole wall is snakes. Like, that's what
you should record all of those meetings.
Well, but one time I convinced somebody to come in here to like have a meeting. They sat down, and I'm here like working, and then all of a sudden you like the kid is like sitting there like terrified, like not knowing what's about to happen. I'm like, you can relax. They're all contained. It's all okay. And then I'm working, and then one of the water cobras just craps. And when they crap, it sounds like a person. So you just hear like this. And the kid, and the kid like went up like this. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, apparently when I said like, "Oh, I'm sorry," she interpreted it as that was me. And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, "Do you need to go to the bathroom?" Like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. It was a snake. And then that's when she's like, "They do that?" Like, mind-opening experience. So having the animals in here is nothing but awesome, because I get to experience stuff like that. But the people that are in here all the time know they're gonna make noises, they're gonna smell like ass, but they're also not leaving because I want them in here more than you. So that's the way that's gonna go. So anyway,
man, I listen to all these podcasts, and they, whenever you listen to different podcasts and they're talking about different species, and you get all excited about the species, and you're like, oh, that would be cool maybe to keep them. And then I learn about this poo problem, and I'm like, oh no,
yeah,
I'm good.
Yep, exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man,
just blame it all on the colubras.
Yeah. Well, like Chad said, they eat once and they crap twice. I think that's the analogy.
That is very true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the poop though. You know, just it's worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's the indigos, Lucas?
Oh man, they're freaking great. That's what I was just gonna say. Like, yes, you're gonna have to deal with the poop, but you're also gonna get so much out of, say, a dry marcon or a falsie that you're just never going to get out of a carpet, and vice versa. The same is true. The inverse is true, but I love both.
Right.
And, it's so fun for me right now to really experiment, like decking out a more naturalistic setup for the falsie as she gets bigger. She outgrew a 3x2 pretty damn quick. Like you talk about, Zach, they are not slow growers. If you're feeding them. So, and also just offering a variety of different prey, which you can do to carpets to an extent, but it's not
like colubrids.
Not when you get 2 cracks a week and trying something different,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And the
Very
indigos,
different.
I love the indigos.
Indigos would be one that I would take the plunge. I've always liked them since I was a kid. The I said it, I forget what podcast I was talking on, but the old TFH book.
Yes.
Snakes as Pets or something like that, I think it was called. Yeah. And like you would open it up and there's a rainbow boa, a red tail boa, which you never saw in like the early 80s, and then the indigo is in there. I was like, whoa, look at that.
Yeah. No.
They're just inherently jaw dropping. And I guess I really just have a thing for really visually cued in snakes.
Yeah.
Very present animals. Watch you as much as you watch them.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
hard to beat. It's hard to beat. I'm 100% a python guy at heart. I will never not have carpet pythons.
Yeah.
As long as I can. At the same time, I could not see my collection not having dry mark on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It scratches a different itch, right?
It does. And
Yeah.
I'm very much one of those people that's like, okay, well, I'll take like dip a toe into something.
Mm-hmm.
And if I like it, then I'm like, okay, I need everything. 100% off the cliff. Like, gone. Gone. I've had my pair of blacktails I've had the pair for 7 years, but I got my first one 9 years ago. And yeah, I just, it's always been a thing like, yep, I think one day I'll need all of those unicolors, yellowtails, the rubidus, everything, Easterns, all of it. Give me all 6 and I'll take like 4 of each, please.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you just sign yourself up for like a lifetime of, I need an outbuilding, I need a warehouse, I need a garage conversion, and all the steps in between. Thank you.
Yes.
Here's
Right.
my
100%.
wallet.
And I would just say too, get a blackhead rally. It's kind of the python version of dry marcon in a way.
Man, it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
They're not quite as bright, but
well, they're more trustworthy than the womas. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
My womas now are not trustworthy.
You're 2 at home.
Mm-hmm.
They grew up. Huh? Yeah, they do
the
that.
female's
They
a
do
little,
that.
Female's a little asshole. I'm like, you can go on timeout permanently.
Mm-hmm. Don't trust them with the tongs. They'll swallow them.
Yeah.
Send it to Owen. He likes the asshole snakes.
And
if
he
it
misses
bites
his
him,
womas, I'm
and,
sure.
Yeah. See, I like the womas though. Like I'm used to that. Like I got my like python inception with womas. Like I let one bite my old director, boss, and a few other people, and I was like, "Whoops! I guess he's not ready." And kept going and mastered that animal, and now I just have an affinity for them. I would really like I said earlier, I'm a complete the set kind of guy. So, next thing is to get a house for what I have. But the other problem is I keep just going down all these rabbit holes. All you people are just bad for me. Like Eric, you and Nipper are really bad for me. I went down the first. I went down the first rabbit hole. I don't even have the fucking animals, and I'm already $400 deep into a cage build and like foam cards multiple weeks into this shit, and like here we go.
Nipper. He was he was a North American snake guy, all rattlesnakes and all this stuff. And now he's like a gecko nut with rattlesnakes. Yeah. He's like, mate, you broke me, mate.
It's awful. Oh, it's awful. Dear.
Oh man.
I need a 4,000 square foot warehouse for every of my like
little
fixes. I need a one for East Australian, West Australian, Central America, South America, like the Andes side, the basin side. Like, oh, well, while we're at it, let's throw a Middle East up there. I've got the Egyptian phase of the crocodile geckos, the Moorish geckos that are all over the place, but they vary based on where they're at. And these ones that I have are some wild-caught adults from the Egypt region, and they remind me of the spider-tailed horn vipers.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, these things are like spider-tailed horn vipers in gecko form. I'm like, this is amazing. And now they're breeding for me. I'm like, yeah, this is bad. I need everything from everywhere humanly possible.
So the NPR network Serpentarium is what you're saying. We need
there we go.
I need like 30 of those. I need like 30 of them to complete to scratch that itch. You know what I mean?
It's gonna might stay itchy, brother.
I'll die itchy. We'll die itchy.
We'll die itchy.
Here we go.
Good. I don't think you can ever actually scratch the itch. That's
no.
Cream powerful enough.
The beautiful thing is there are people everywhere in every facet of this hobby, even in the fish keeping, the the plant keeping, the isopods, the amphibians. There's so much unlimited and unbridled enthusiasm from people in every single sector that you could sit there and say, okay, well, I want to get into something new, or I'm going to open my mind to this, and you do it, and you'll find like-minded people like us four sitting right here, but for that own brand of something. And it's hard not to find something contagious and exciting about it if you're that mindset of individual. And I have 100% accepted that I have an addictive personality, and I need everything. I was playing with my Novas. I was playing with my Inlands earlier today. We were ultrasounding Crebos. I was just like, okay, getting in touch with everything. And it's like, yep, this is why I need everything of everything humanly possible.
Riley, you know what would actually finally scratch your itch, and then you could be done, is a hypo-stripe bread lie. I can help you.
What do I got to do?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What is, so you want something here? I'll give you something, because it ain't money. I ain't got that.
We'll talk.
I'm planning a wedding, dude. You can't.
That's true, but you did that.
You can't ask me to buy snakes right now. I haven't bought a snake in. Oh, she left. Never mind. She doesn't listen to this shit. I did buy a corn snake a little while ago, but don't tell her. She doesn't know that. But
how many corn snakes do you have now?
What you
quite
up
a
to?
bit, right?
Riley likes
man,
corn.
14.
He has to turn and count.
14.
Yeah,
Nice.
That
I
happened
remember when you
fast.
got your first two. Was that like last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
but look how happy it makes him. You can't deny Riley the
I've got a
corn.
pair of red Zeppelins. I've got a pair of some Okatee Extreme Okatees, and then like a smattering of things. I'm all about the anery stuff, a gold dust stripe, some blood red and diffused blood red stuff. Oh,
That's the crazy thing about herpetoculture. It's like when you start getting outside of whatever species group that you deal with, and you start to like open up to the door to another group of people that keep a different species that you didn't even know existed, and you're like, wow, there's people crazy about this species as I am about carpets or false water cobras or whatever it would be. It's kind of crazy.
It's nutty.
And I didn't say, well, we talked about this yesterday with Billy, but Owen now officially has the Schmitty approved snake, the Baird's rat snake.
Yes.
He's broken now.
Yeah.
Schmitty broke him.
He was broken before.
It was just a matter of time. It was one of those things like
Jim broke him at a young age.
He's a colubrid guy. It was just it's just a matter of time before that vein.
He is a colubrid guy.
Let's be real.
Really is.
Let's be real.
No.
Owen Snake.
He just plays a python guy on a podcast, man.
If I'm going to be completely honest, Owen
He's on my
Snake
team.
is a king snake. Owen's a king snake.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. It just
He
so happens that
pretends
coastals are like the king snakes of Australian pythons.
Yeah.
Think
That
about
would
it.
be Aspidites.
No, think about it. Think about it. How many forms of king snakes do we have
Lucas
around
thought about it a lot.
around the country? How many forms of coastals are there? And how many different food items has Owen gotten them to eat?
Yeah. Okay, there
Fish, quail, rodents. I don't know
Yeah,
what
but
else.
which ones eat venomous snakes?
Well, okay, yeah, they definitely don't do that, but
No, you were both right. It's okay.
but that's
Zach,
like, yeah, that's.
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So, and I'm gonna change the subject a little bit, if that's okay. Riley, were you done?
Yeah,
I don't want to be rude. Riley, were you done?
done with what?
I don't know. Whatever you're
There
saying.
you go.
I think he was done. Go.
Cool. All right. What did you say?
Universal symbol before he's done.
Yes, perfect. So with the two sides of the Zach Loughman coin, the crayfish in streams, and now the herpetoculture stuff that you're doing, what are you most excited about on both sides of your world for 2022? Is there a specific project on either end that?
Yeah. I feel like I am extremely blessed because my hobbies are my job. the part of my job that drives me
Jobbies.
crazy. Yes, it's more like, since it is my job, it's not. And this is, I don't mean for this to sound swanky or arrogant, and it's not. But like, I don't view herpetoculture as a hobby, because it's more than that. Like, I view stamp collecting and comic book collecting and baseball collecting.
Yeah.
Like,
we have talked on this show about how that word is a problem.
I don't like that word. I think it's more like a discipline or passion. I like passion and discipline way more than hobby. But anyway, but the fact that, like, the part of my job I don't like is when I have to deal with like administrative stuff, or deal with a kid's bill, or deal with a kid that doesn't understand why he has to take this class or that class or whatever class, that stuff, or with the grants when I have to deal with agencies. I'm not going to go down this rant. Lucas has heard this rant, but like, I know that like various agencies, I'm not going to name them, can drive you insane if you're a researcher, because you're the guy who knows about the crayfish. But yet, because you know about the crayfish, you have to get X number of permits to go study the crayfish, and you got to wait for those permits. Meanwhile, Joe Schmo's out catching the endangered crayfish, bringing them home and eating them, while I'm waiting for a piece of paper to go save that crayfish Joe Schmo's eating. So like, that's that part of the job. Boom. But when I can just live in my two worlds of crayfish and herpetoculture, the crayfish side, I'm happy. I'm looking forward to this year because the funding that we have for the lab is awesome, because I get to travel a lot. So I'm going, we're going to be doing field work in Kentucky. I love Kentucky, for the record. Central Kentucky. So we're going to be down there.
What's left of it?
We're going to be all over South Carolina and the Savannah River, which is like a herping mecca. Nice. So like, my favorite place to herp are swamps. I know everybody loves like mountains and things, but I love
swamps are juicy.
Cottonmouths and Nerodia, man. I can't. They would never get that. That's what I want to find. So we got lots of work there, and the crayfish are awesome. We have some crayfish projects where we're going to be naming new species, and that's always fun. So like, the fun thing about the crayfish side of my life is that it challenges me all the time as a scientist, zoologist, and a naturalist. That whole tree thing we were talking about earlier. Like knowing everything, reading the land, all that kind of
do that, but underwater.
So the work in general is what I'm excited about. I'm not excited about any one thing. I'm excited that we have a fun summer planned. On the herpetoculture side, I'm looking forward to trying to breed some of these colubrids for the first time. It's nothing over the top. It's things like bull snakes and pine snakes and gopher snakes, but I've never bred Pitchophis, so we're going to give that a go. But I would say that's probably what I'm most excited about. And I'm actually, to kind of make this Lucas-centric, I'm happy that we are going to be working on that Aspidites book. And that's something that I'm about, because right now I've got contracts to write 3 books on. I'm affiliated with your project, and then I got the Hognose book and the Dipsada book, and none of the damn books are done. So I just want one of those bastards to be done. Like, I don't care which one's done. I just want to be able to say we did the beginning, the middle, and the end of one of these book projects. And and so I would say on the herpetoculture side, the thing I'm most looking forward to is probably putting this Dipsadid book to bed. Like, I've been trying to find pictures of obscure ass South American snakes, and it's a problem when you like need other people's pictures, because I've never been to South America, so I don't have any pictures. And so like, tracking down photographs for the book is its own. I said this when I was on THP yesterday. It's like electronic herping. I'm like always trying to like figure out where the hell do I go to find the pictures of Atractus, which is a genus of South American critters that are like this big. And I found a guy's Flickr account and was like, oh my God, I found them. They're right here. But then you got to do the whole reaching out to them, and people don't have their email. So it's like, but no, that's getting all that done
when I see you still online at like
that's
4 a.m. your time. Please. You're like, where's the Flickr?
I know it's here somewhere.
No. Well, it's crazy because like I have in that Dipsada book, there's like 4 paragraphs about one snake. Okay. So I'm like, all right, I gotta find pictures of this thing. I cannot find a damn picture of the freaking snake. And so now I'm on the like, so do I just not have a picture of it? And then I'm like, oh no, we can't do that because everybody's attention span is like, so we need to make sure that the book is not only a book full of words, but a book full of pictures. So,
Yeah.
you know, hunting those things down. That's why when I segue over to the hognose book, that's going to be much, much better because I can get the damn pictures myself. And it's a North American species, so it's not difficult to find people. Yeah, so
Yeah. You could
that's
do
kind of a convoluted answer. And then herping wise, I was always way more into herping than herpetoculture before Zeusai showed up. And so this year I have very lofty herping goals. I just want to herp places I have not herped before. I go a lot of places for field work, but you know, at the end of the day, and you know this, Lucas, being, you know, doing your consulting work, you get at the end of the grueling ass day and you're kind of like, bed.
Yeah.
You know,
food.
I'm in the business.
Bed.
I flip like 500 and 800 pound rocks with the river pushing the rocks back down as we're trying to flip them up. So at the end of the day, you don't have much energy. But this year I've decided, like, no, we're gonna incorporate the herping where we're going.
Yes.
So
well, when you come over, the air mattress is going to blow up right in the middle of this room, so you can sleep with all the animals. And then we're going to go get SF garters and dicamptodon.
So, is there a specific species that you would want to find? Like, do you have a list?
Yeah, like, I have my nemesis.
List? Yeah, which is
list. Oh, it's hognose snakes. They kick my ass every freaking time. I don't know what.
Easterns, westerns, both.
All of them.
All of them.
I want to find. I literally have to find them all to get my own damn pictures for the book. So there's that. But like last year, I did a trip to Kansas, and I spent 10 days in Kansas herping because in October, it's called Hogtober for a reason. Right. Because that's the baby heterodon are all out looking around. And I coordinated with people. I found the guy at the Sternberg Museum of Natural History, Curtis Schmidt, who like is big in the Kansas Herpetological Association. He's like, all right, he literally made my trip. I was like, I don't know anything about Kansas. I have these things called mountains and hills. I don't know what flat is. Like, I have no concept of that. And I went to the prairie. So he made this itinerary and we followed it to a T. And we found 35 species. We found over 200 snakes. Didn't find a freaking hognose snake alive. We found 4 dead easterns. And then we went out there for plains, the NASA or westerns, and we didn't find a western. And we were road hunting 10 hours a day. I can tell you how many hours we road hunted because the rental we had actually, Alec, the guy I was talking about, he was like, at the end of the trip, I was like, what? He's like, we were in this car over 100 hours. So we literally hurt over 100 hours, just road hunt. No heterodon. We get home to West Virginia and Curtis calls me. Did you know that somebody went up on that same road and within 15 minutes found 3? I'm like,
oh, God, bitch.
So, like, literally, I was like, ugh. So that the heterodon quest is on. I'm not going to talk about where I'm going. I have a place and I have a time, and I'm bringing an army with me, and we're going to get that. I want to find Southerns. I have another guy, and I know the guys with North Carolina DNR. And they basically doing a trade-off, which is like, you know, I can get the permit, which makes me totally illegal, and I can go down and everything I find, I'll take data on, and I give them the data because I don't want to keep anything. I just want photographs. And then I did get easterns last year. So, but like my luck with this snake is crazy. There's a place in Pennsylvania where you can pretty much find easterns if you go there. And I got the spot and I went in May when you find the easterns. And I don't know if you remember, Eric, but we had a weekend in May where it was supposed to be like 70 degrees and it ended up being like 88 degrees. Fluke weather. That was the weekend I went to look for the damn hognose snakes, and they only come out like at cooler temperatures. So I pivoted and went down to West Virginia, which was like 3 hours from my house. That place was 7 hours from my house. And we got them. So I got 2. I got the pictures, but no, that's my big quest is just here on the east side, just finding hognose snakes. I need to find as many as I can to get pictures of variation for the book.
I'm going to try to find an eastern hog this year.
Yeah,
in PA. Hopefully.
I can talk to you when we're not on air, and I have a spot.
Ooh. Oh, I think I know your spot. We went. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'll hit this. My wife.
But Alec went to that same spot that I went to, and he got him. So
really,
yeah, no, literally.
I don't know.
Students,
I don't trust
First
Alec.
time he went herping ever. He's a crayfish kid. He's like, well, I guess I'll try this herping thing. They got timbers, copperheads, eastern hogs, milk snake. Like, it's just like, just shut up and get away from me. Like, I don't even want to talk to you right now. So anyway, but no.
Did Alec have pictures though? Because I feel like he would also just say that to make you feel bad.
But who, Alec? Oh no,
Yeah.
I got the pictures, and he used them to make me feel bad. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, didn't he also dress up as you for Halloween?
He did dress up as me for Halloween. Yeah.
So good.
It's not the first time a student's done that either. So
I have the perfect spot
Anyway.
for timbers.
Yes.
If you ever want in PA, I know exactly where they're at. You will
Excellent.
definitely find them for sure. 100% guaranteed.
Yes. But then I we're going on spring break. We're going to Florida, and we're going to look for Florida Kings because I don't have those.
Right.
I did you did corn snakes this year, Riley. I did Getula Kings. Like I got like a trio of Floridas, and then 6 weeks later I looked and was like, I can't count all these snakes. How did this happen? So I'm up to like, I'm worse than you. I have over 40 now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was thinking, like, I'd like to see where they live. I'd like to get that information, and I might be able to do some things like what I did with that paper with the natural history and herpetoculture. You know, falsies are great, but I got to go to frickin' Argentina to find them in the wild. So I need to find a snake that I can use to do some experiments that's local. And I thought, all right, well, we'll do king snakes because if I'm looking for king snakes, I'm in bottomlands, and anytime I'm in bottomlands, I'm happy. So that's why I'm kind of segueing for them. But we got a little research project going on in Florida, so that's happening in March. But no,
cool.
Going lots of places.
Endless potential,
That's
man.
awesome.
For real.
Mhm.
Endless potential with that program.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No,
We're
I love
doing
it.
California and Arizona this year.
Yes. I may be going to Portal area for a conference in July.
Okay.
And and I might be going for Leps and Clobberai and all those guys.
Oh,
So, well, Leps are Clobberai, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
Gotcha.
Have you made it to Arizona? You did not make it to Arizona.
I
yet,
didn't go.
right?
No.
Yeah.
I had COVID.
Yeah.
COVID got me.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us except Riley at the moment.
Yeah.
the
Not
COVID.
yet.
Yeah.
It's close though. It's hitting home, man. It's getting rampant through here. Alyssa's out with COVID. She's been out for over a week. So
Yeah.
I've been running the shop solo.
Oy, oy,
Nice.
oy. How's the brain fog, Zach? You were saying that
It's
it
horrible.
was- yeah, you're still
Sucks,
feeling
don't
it,
it?
right?
Oh my
You
god.
got it too.
Oh no, I got it back. So I didn't have any symptoms because I had all 3 shots. So like they tested all the kids here when they came back. And when we started school, I had a head cold. And I thought, is this COVID? This can't possibly be COVID. And then sure enough, the students I know were like, I was getting the emails basically saying this kid can't be in class. And then I reached out and was like, do you have COVID? And they're like, yeah, I feel fine. Like, well, do you feel anything? I think I have a head cold. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, so
Yeah.
I did a take-home test, nothing. I did the brain poke because we were set to do field work. And sure enough, it popped positive. The only symptom I had, I mean, I was walking 5.5, 6 miles a night with COVID. Like,
Wow.
because I'm trying to get in shape for the field season, and I roam around my neighborhood at night because I'm a creeper. And that's why that's when I walk, because I don't have time to walk any other time of day, and I don't like walking when it's hot. So yeah, but I had to like call that to an end. But one of the things that tipped me off though that I might have COVID is I was sitting right here, and I'm the chair of my department. So like everybody's problem is my problem. Like that's my job.
Right.
Okay. And all these kids didn't sign up for this class, or they got kicked out of that class, or they didn't pay their bill. And I had this gigantic to-do list. And I'm normally like not anxious, but I don't like to have things over my head.
Mhm.
And the
Right.
to-do list was like at 30 things. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to be.
Oh,
And then I thought, I have to be dying. Like something has to be
Yes.
wrong if I'm just sitting here and I do not care about anything. So that's when I went and got the PCR test. And sure enough, I had
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
But no. And it was the first week of classes. and I had all these things that like had to happen, and it was crazy. But it's starting to go away. I still have it. I tell everybody I benefited from COVID. I literally feel rested, and
that's good. You need that.
Yeah, because I just didn't care about anything. So no, the brain fog is like that's the only symptom that I had.
Very good. Well, I'm glad it wasn't worse. Eric obviously was on the verge of death for months, and I have long COVID in the form of a headache that won't leave, and congestion and coughing crap out of my lungs forever. But
COVID's probably part of the reason why when I was asked like to do 2 podcasts back to back, I was like, I like doing that. We'll do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? like there's no rationality. Yeah. No rationality or logical thought or like, oh, you got to
Zach like podcast.
Yeah.
I was going to send a message to you in the thing when you asked, and I was going to answer him back. And I'm like, well, he's a doctor. So, I mean, he realizes that he's doing these podcasts back to back, but okay. All right.
And I'm fine. Well, it's all good.
Like you have to have a certain amount of stamina for that as someone that lectures for hours on them to children. So me being children.
Yes. Well, I mean, a normal class, if I teach a night class, I'm talking for 3 straight hours.
Yeah.
So, and that's about stuff I don't necessarily want to talk about. This is all stuff I want to talk about. This is relaxing. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
but no, weathered that storm. Oh,
ooh,
beautiful.
Big old chain king that lives in my backyard.
Chain kings are fantastic. I can't keep those anymore. They West Virginia got new herp regs, and they went the route of no native species, but black mambas are cool. So,
of course.
Yeah. But
well, you need to get your Instagram followers up. You know what I mean? So they want to,
how will we get the YouTube ad revenue?
So anywho, but it's cool. I mean, I work with DNR all the time, so I understand their perspective. I understand my perspective. They're just different. So there you go.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But no, chain kings are awesome.
I don't know if I've ever seen a chain king. I'm going to look it up right now as we
Eastern king snake, same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
They just call them chains because the white circles can be connected on the sides. So it ends up kind of having a chain link effect. So no, I haven't actually found the Eastern kings. I haven't found any of the true Getula. I found the only king that I found are black kings, and they're in West Virginia. And they're really, really cool. So
very cool.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, just a nice, clean black and white Cali King is still my favorite thing to find out here. Just can't beat it. They're so cool. No. Yeah. So with Eric's looking up pictures. Papuan carpets are your favorite carpet. So with the Papuans, everybody kind of talks about how there is so much potential for different avenues to take projects, right? You could go for the oranges, you could go for a darker black look. Like, do you have a preferred Papuan phenotype that you actually let's all look at the chain king.
Distracted.
I tried to bring it back to carpets.
Go ahead.
What is your perfect Papuan?
I like 2 looks. I like the super black with yellow. Like, almost like the jungle look, but I like there to be that Papuan orange red in there too, if that makes any sense. That's my favorite look. And then I like the ones that are high orange. Just orange all over the freaking place. Those are the 2 looks.
Solid flames.
Like. Yes. Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, the one pair I have, I got them from Ryan DeMoss when he was
nice
making his collection smaller. He put them up, and I was like, all right, I'll go with Ryan. So, and they produced an animal that you can even call it high yellow. I don't know how to. It almost looks like a jungle. It's crazy. And I gave all the babies away. I just kept a female, and she's pretty fantastic. So, it's one of the snakes that I look at, and I'm like, I helped make that. Like what? like this is like not just a carpet. Like it's got a nice look to it. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We don't know what last year's clutch is going to look like. They're still red and, baby poplin-y, if that makes any sense at all.
Here's one of the only places where it does make sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice. Eric, what are you looking at? What are you doing?
I was trying to pull up Poster Child to
Oh, nice.
the super orange poplin.
I can tell when you have the schemy look in your eye.
Oh, you can. Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting that you can see me when I'm looking at the computer screen.
Yes.
But no, that's my look.
Very good.
Yeah, there's so many different looks to where you can go with them, but yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like the, but of course, I can't find it.
Yeah, I've found that if I'm gonna go any kind of like line breeding or anything like that, I don't really like any particular morph per se. I just like a lot of contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and, like stark contrast.
Yeah.
And so that's where that kind of jet black, not just black, and then the yellow look is what I like.
Yeah, Scott is right. I don't know if you guys have ever watched this YouTube channel, but
crime pays, but botany doesn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Nice suggestion, Scott. Yeah, that guy's awesome.
Of course, I can't find it. Don't wait for me. Talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst ourselves. Yeah. Riley, talk amongst ourselves.
Amongst ourselves.
We're really good at podcasts.
Yeah, you're doing great. It's all good. It's all good.
He sounds like the the dad that's giving a little bit of that little push, you're doing great, kid.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, now I'm stage fright.
I've got 2 pairs of poplins going this year on both ends of the spectrum. One female that's super orange and one female that doesn't have a lick of orange on her, and she's black.
Mm-hmm.
And males that complement them nicely, and they're both looking really, really good. So if all goes well, should be able to pull off 2 clutches this year, some poplins that kind of cover that spectrum nicely.
Yeah. The funny thing about the 2 clutches that were produced here is that both times we didn't think we were successful. So we were like, oh, eggs, cool. Wow, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a badass snake.
Yep. I like that snake.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
That thing's smoking. Which one is that, Eric? That's Poster Child?
That is no, that's an offspring of Poster Child.
Very cool.
Reminds me of the imports that I picked up from Dan a few years ago for us.
Yeah. For whatever reason, those in particular have a lot of orange on the saddles. I've noticed. I don't know if yours has the same, but it's
they do
really, really orange in the lower.
Yeah, the orange goes all the way across the dorsal in some areas. Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
So I put on my Instagram that we were having you on and had a little submission box if anybody had any questions that might not be able to make it. I did get one. So Alex's Reptiles wants to ask, Classilepis scrub price hike to $7,500. Is this good or bad for Moluccans as a species? Go!
Wow.
Thanks, Alex Reptiles. You broke the podcast.
I really.
And Riley might be deceased. Nope.
I ain't saying shit. That's it.
I think.
Okay.
He muted himself.
Sometimes that's for the best.
I think the problem with species this is just my 2 cents. The problem with species like that is I think that it keeps it out of hands of people that could possibly do some good for the species. And it really sort of nailed the point home when I heard Rob on Snakes and Stogies on Monday talking about like Jamaican boas,
Yes.
Puerto Rican boas, these species that have no value at all. And the only thing that keeps people into that species is the fact that they actually love the species. They're willing to just give it away to people to continue this stuff. They trade different lines and stuff so that their genetics are diverse. And I think he was saying, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think he was saying that the Puerto Rican boas that are in the hobby are like as genetically diverse as the wild Puerto Rican boas, which to me is kind of crazy, but I don't know, man. I think with Bolin's pythons and Moluccan pythons, to me, that just seems like a cash in. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just look at it as, I get it. They're rare, but I think it gives the wrong idea to people coming into herpetoculture because it puts value on something that's probably not fit for everybody. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Now, I view that. I copy that. I think that it becomes like the chasing the dragon that you guys talk about. Like literally, like you want to have. It also promotes like a one-off situation where you can only afford one animal. So then you end up buying one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, but you don't end up with what you need to maintain a captive population, which is multiple animals in one place.
Or what about the dude that doesn't know any better and buys a pair, and he's the first person that makes you think that your price point is legit, and then nobody follows suit afterwards, and then you drop your price a couple $1,000s, and then 1 or 2 other fish bite, you drop it a few $1,000s, and then the dude who jumped on it, that $7,500 price point per animal, finds out, gets pissed off that somebody else got the same shit he did for half the price or something like that.
Yeah.
Then who are you? You're that asshole that just blindly ripped off a few dudes in the hobby just because you accidentally bred something rare. And I'm going back to mute.
Oh, Riley.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's hard, right? Because there's the side of us that agree that, the entire discussion of a market with the reptile, the herpetocultural discipline, as I shall now say, is in and of itself is just a little bit ridiculous. But you can't argue with the point that it's worth what someone will pay.
Yes.
Like if you are that person that has the clutch of Moluccans or has the clutch of Bolins, who's to tell you what you can and can't do. But the flip side of that is exactly what you guys are saying. Do we want them to stay rare, or do we want more Moluccan scrubs?
Because if you succeed in that, you are by default almost certainly going to cause that price point to then go down as the population in human care goes up.
Exactly. So what is our true
what's the
goal here? Yeah.
And then what does that do to the import market other than market up even further to a ridiculous price? The animal's quality hasn't changed. The risk to you having success with an import hasn't changed. But now some importers seeing that some Joe Schmo is charging 350% increase. Now all of a sudden they're going to be like, well, he's asking that, I'm going to jack my price up. And now the risk has gone through the roof. The price has gone through the roof, but you're still getting an import animal that's going to, potentially roll on you because of the status. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I think too, the with that group of snakes, the scrub complex, which I kind of lump Bolins into that same thing, is like clearly we've seen an uptick in people producing scrub pythons, right? Yes. And I think that has to do with a couple things. One being that a lot of people have been using double males, right, to get the female in order to produce a clutch, right? And if that's sort of the breeding strategy, how can you do that when the snake is, you know what I'm saying?
Like, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
That whole strategy is questionably bullshit too. I mean, look at, did you guys hear? Yeah, the double male. That strategy is questionably bullshit. Did you guys listen to the recent episode of Fight Club? There's a little jab in there, a little stab in there that
Which episode?
the
From
most
today or
recent
last
Fight
week?
Club from today.
I haven't listened yet.
And Justin and Chuck had a little stab in there, and it was a little, yeah, thanks for whoever started that rumor about needing multiple males, because Chuck bred his without having to do that, and he's sitting on 2.1, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, the whole intonation was that was a waste of him buying 2 males, because it was from people who just think, you know, they haven't figured out, so they do all this, and it's just another like passing of this dogma torch that nobody ever puts through a scientific process or tests or double checks or sees if it's reproducible. They just have one like, well, I did it this way, and then all of a sudden everybody buys it as gospel. And in my opinion, I don't think we know. And to say that we know one way or the other, and then to have this whole market scheme like, well, you got to buy multiple males, you got to have combat, you got to have this, you got to pit. Really?
Well, we have just the guy to talk about dogma in the reptile hobby.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, I if I can add something to that, I think that I think too often in the private side and the professional side, because I'm also in the business of zoos, and I talk to a lot of people in zoos.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you're trying to get something to reproduce. I don't care what it is. It can be a parrot or a Moluccan scrub, for all, you know, Classilepsis, whatever. That people are trying, and they're literally, the scientific approach is grab shit, throw at wall. That it's not and in some instances it's totally the scientific method, but there's definitely like literally kitchen sink, throw everything, and then invariably you get success. And then when you use that approach, though, here's the problem: you've thrown everything. So if you've thrown everything,
you can't isolate your variables.
But you're gonna try, and then you're gonna say the variable was the 2 males, because that's what was different from everybody else. Well, maybe you had 2 males. Maybe that was the variable. Very well could be the male. The variable could also be that you had multiple pressure fronts moving through.
Yeah.
And you had 1 male that got triggered, and it's really no different than 1 male working. So that's why.
Yeah, there's a whole lot.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like you can't use the kitchen sink. I use the kitchen sink.
It's a great way to start with something that has no publication, right? Like at the very least, you might get a heading of where to start from that point on. You throw everything out there, maybe get some indication.
But you got to take data. That's the thing. And people aren't, you know, the data point there is 2 males. That's the variable we're queuing in on. But you got to take the data that might be null that you don't think's important. So while you're doing that, log the barometric pressure, log the weather patterns, log the temperature, log the substrate type, log the shed cycle, log everything, and then look at all of the data. But don't just look at like what you got there and be like, oh no, this is what did it. And that happens all the time, all the time.
Well,
so
I don't know. What do you think about this as well, right? Even if you take the double males out of the equation, right? Let's just say that that's total bullshit. But you still need, and I mean, for me, if I was going to work with, well, look at me with Poplins, right? I have like, you know, as genetically diverse a group as I possibly can have. I have wild caught stuff. I have farm hatch stuff. I have stuff that's been in the hobby from different bloodlines that can be traced back to wild caught stuff, all unrelated. But in order to do a project like that, you know, and have a group, I think people think like, oh, I'm going to have a pair of this or a pair of that. And it's like, well, yeah, you might produce them and you might get lucky. And maybe with carpets, it's probably easier because they breed easier. But with a lot of these like rare, you know, python or rare anything, I think you need a bigger group than like a pair. You know what I mean? Like,
it has to be reproducible.
And with this, we're not even talking about the genetic side of it.
No, fuck genetics. Just getting offspring. You have to be able to say, for this species, I had success this way. Now I'm going to then do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to show that this system works, regardless of the genetics involved.
100%. You have to have the system first. But my point is,
you do it once, whoop-de-doo. Do it again 3 more times. Let's see it.
most certainly. But my point is, as that pertains to how these things are valued, let's keep in mind that if we actually somehow do get it together as a herpetocultural discipline to track our genetic diversity and try to somehow be a private entity that does some kind of a stud bookie thing with these rare species to try to make it legit, well, then they probably can't be unattainable. And because what are you going to do if you're the guy that gets lucky? You can't afford more. You're just going to breed the siblings.
So here's the example of what zoos do. Zoos have a computer program that has an algorithm that takes the entire population of a stud book, computes the relatedness to usually 0.1%, so they can make the most disparate related possible pairings within a population using only what they know. If they don't have that known, this is where that animal came from, that can't be used in this population, even if it probably is viable. If you don't have that information, gone, can't use it. So what they basically do is they have this population of all these known genetics and known animals and their relatedness, and that makes recommended pairings based on the unrelatedness coefficient within those animals. And they try and have animals sent to different zoos for these breedings in hopes that it works out to then create further animals that are as unrelated as possible for the longevity of the species. That's kind of just
exactly the 100-year goal, et cetera, et cetera.
That is not what anybody, 99% of people do in herpetoculture do.
Oh, I'm aware.
There are.
I'm not saying that happens.
I'm not illuminating it for you, Lucas. I'm illuminating it for our audience. I'm illuminating it for the people that are listening and maybe just figuring this out.
Now I will mute.
Yeah. So this is no. I want you involved in this. This is how it goes because you were seeding this, and I think it's wonderful to bring up. Because I do think there's a lot of value to do this in herpetoculture. I do think it's
100%
super important, and I don't think it's that hard to do.
No,
I mean, you might have to spend some time keeping a certain animal out of your study or out of your group until you can confirm or deny origins, backgrounds, whatever. But at a certain point in time, you can start from that point on. With this approach and this objective, if that's what your goal is. And it doesn't have to be something where you pay union dues and go to meetings every year. It could just be a simple organization of people with a like-minded goal. Organization is the hardest part when it is loosey-goosey, kind of free-flowing. But I think when you get a good population of people involved, you can at least start somewhere. And I think starting with a known population with one species is all it takes. Just start with, like, for example, right now, say Dr. Loughman, you started it with your falsies. Yep. Just that would be a great example because you know where these animals came from. Even if you didn't start with the original founding stock, you start with the offspring you've produced because say they're the only known, like truly known variables, which is probably not the case. You probably know a lot more than that, but you could really start with that, create a foundation for everybody else to follow. And then what it does is it inspires people who have animals that maybe exist pre that era, do some digging, do some homework, do some reaching out. And you might be able to find that stuff. You might be able to very validly find out, okay, this animal is as represented. Here's the steps along the way. It can now be used as a viable member of this gene pool, and its genetic diversity can be used for the benefit of the species. It's a lot of work, but it can be done. It can be done.
I think Ari tried to do that with Boland's, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he did. Well, I don't know how far they got, but
they absolutely do this. All those kennel clubs and everything. You know this one. This is the product of this and this and that. And you maintain those what the hell is it called?
The AKC?
Yeah, AKC. But we do it with pictures of snakes, and it shows like great grandfather, but I forget the name of that. Lineage tree.
Like a lineage tree, yeah.
But to add a like layer to it, it is very easy and very cheap. You just require somebody in the know to take a little bit of skin from a snake. And you can even use shed skin and send it off to a genetics company and get a sequence for that snake and then run a phylogenetic tree and look at how things are related to each other. And if
Sure.
you got a group of whatever, a population of animals you wanted to study, it would be great if you did this at like what's called a microsatellite level, because that's studying a population. But you can get away with just like basic genotyping.
Yep.
But if everybody that was interested in a species that was relatively rare, like did that, and you have somebody that's in the know on how to do the map, the genetic analyses, you could literally come up with what AZA has. And I've thought about this a lot in my random drivings from work to home. And then one of the things that drives me insane about herpetoculture, and I'm not getting like highfalutin here, is like we are our worst enemy. We do stupid shit all the time. And if there was just one group,
we usually publicize it on YouTube too.
Yeah, that was doing this level of care, and then really took the husbandry to like the next degree, and then advertised what the hell they were doing and was out in the open, we might actually get more respect than we get. And the people that have mastered this, there is a facet of herpetoculture that has mastered this, and no one ever talks about them. The freaking turtle people. They're amazing. Yep. They totally have the genetic lineage for these turtles. They're working with agencies. So like when they do a bust in Asia and they need a place for the turtles to go.
Oh, yes.
The herpetoculturists here are getting them.
Yep.
Now, they had to work their ass off. They didn't like yell and scream. They didn't get up and shake their fists every time a law came down. They sat at the table. They talked relatively calmly. When the door's shut, they're dropping F-bombs left and right, probably because they can't, regs are coming down. But their whole approach to the whole thing of making this a discipline and not a hobby got respect. And now look at where they're at. They're literally working.
The other thing that people, I think, don't want to admit is involved in a big way is the financial angle that rears its ugly head. The one thing that most people don't realize is when zoos trade these animals and swap them back and forth, there is no money. There's no money changing hands usually. For example, Sacramento Zoo, say they want to get in some Aldabras from a facility that has some up for sale. They literally just pay for freight and shipping and transport, whatever it takes to have a ferry or whatever. There is no, well, this tortoise costs $9,000. Pay that plus shipping. And I get it. It's not, they're not in the business of making money off the animals, whereas in the private sector, some people, that's how they pay their bills. But that is absolutely 100% a variable that creates alternative motives and just changes the way that dynamic works. And that can't be understated. I mean, that is absolutely a crucial variable into why zoos have it figured out and herpetoculture doesn't. Because they're not doing it based on money. Yeah. They're doing
At
it
least
based
not
on
in
the
that
good.
regard.
In that regard, yes, in that regard. And I should also say that's not every zoo, and that's not everywhere, and that's not 100% across the board. I should
100%.
never. There is no blanket statement in this. There's always asterisks to that. But for the most part, that is how this exchange of animals operates within the AZA community. That is how the species is managed in the AZA community, and it is for the longevity, unrelatedness of a species that might or is already in peril from that. And I think we take for granted in this hobby some of these species that have limited gene pools, like our Australian stuff, or Indonesian stuff, or Madagascar, or wherever, So,
no, one of my dreams, because I see all sides. I'm literally in all sides of the argument, because I hear people bitch about academia. Well, I'm in academia. Yep. And then I hear people bitch about zoos.
Yep.
I'm the chair of a zoo sci major.
Yeah.
And I'm a private hobbyist. So I literally, like, if you got like a peace sign and each wedge represents something, I am in the middle. I am literally right there.
Yeah.
And I see the pros and cons to everything.
I don't envy you. I've played the bop it game where I've just bopped from one spot to whatever's lighting up, and that's just where my career goes. But I see it, man. It's 100%. Like there's so much good that we can take as herpetoculture from the zoological side of things. And there's so much good that the zoological side of things can take from herpetoculture, and if also include academia and research and everything. it's just, ironic that I'm going to say that right now because I'm also a kind of a cynical asshole. So
The one thing that I would say is
You
like
just
we were
described
talking.
my college. That's what I'm going to school for.
hey, at least you remember it.
We were talking to Darren and Daniel Boz in Australia. It was on the NPR the other week, and we were having a conversation about their licensing structure in Australia, and it made me think like, I know that we're so anti license and like, you have to prove that you can do X, and I know it's America and everything is free and it's my right, all this kind of stuff. And I know everybody's afraid about that because let's face it, once you give away a little bit of this, it's in our brain that you're going to give away more and
give an inch, take a mile sort of thing. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. After listening to their thought, I kind of think that they kind of have a good way of doing it. I mean,
I don't think it should be a free for all. I've said this.
Well, look
before.
at Florida with their getting a venomous permit.
Right.
And I know, like you talk about Florida, immediate regulations come up. Everybody wants to burn people with fire down. Let's take that out of the equation. I spent a semester in Florida, fresh out of West Virginia, after I graduated from undergrad, and realized I don't want to live in Florida. I'm coming back to my mountains. But in that semester, I hung out with a lot of herpers. And when you went through that process to get your 1,000 hours and you mentored and then you passed the test or whatever the hell the final thing is, and then you come out the other end and you're like, yeah, I got my venomous permit. That's like a badge of honor at that point. Like, you did it. And that alone adds a level to the cake. Like, then people entering herpetoculture are like, all right, that's what I got to do to have these animals. Well, if you're serious about it, that's what you're going to do. And that's the good side of regulations, I'm going to argue, because you really do have to put your time in. And when you put your time in, there's that pride factor. And the pride factor then might keep you from like forgetting to feed the damn snakes or opening the tub and then there's a big pile of crap. You might be less inclined to just close it because it's just a $35 whatever. Because you've invested your time. And then the other thing that does, whether we want to admit it or not, is the people that are going to be in this for like 3 years, they're out of it before they get into it. And then that's going to help us because we don't want the bad imaging.
Yes,
exactly.
You've got to be massively committed to the process. But you say, like you just said, Eric, I look at that stuff and I'm thinking, okay, cool. A certificate system. I'm okay
100%.
with that.
100%.
I think it's a great system.
Here at the university, it was really funny because they're always looking for ways to use our online education platform. One day they were like, can you come up with a graduate degree online? And now we have Lucas. So, literally, yeah, we can do that. But my herpetoculture class that I teach, that Lucas took, I've heard that it's a little intense.
Oh, so fun.
But I've often thought, what would it be cool to offer that as a certificate in herpetoculture that's coming from a university? Would people take that?
Can I have?
Or would people not take that? Or if you actually went through it, and I'm not saying that you need that.
You could do it with AZA.
Yeah, but if we did something like that, maybe that would. The Amphibian Foundation does that. They have
make a swanky
herpetology certificate
little PDF. Will you sign it that says Lucas Lee, herp master?
Oh, Lucas, they already do that. AZA already does it. I've got one. I
want it to be signed by Zach.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that, but I've got one up on my wall. Well, you can't see it; it's behind the monkey. I've got one over there from my Croc school.
Croc school.
Croc school.
There's a full years of academics worth shoved right into 10 days plus hands-on lab work and everything, and it was amazing.
Croc school sounds important because a croc can eat you.
Yes.
Yes, and I still have all 10 of my fingers because of that school.
Yeah.
And I've had this thumb almost in a Chinese alligator's mouth.
Nice.
Right.
But it can be done. Lucas, you are the guinea pig, the guinea pig student body for what will probably in 10, 15 years be a standard or a norm.
Yes.
Sign me up.
No,
Yeah.
I like that stuff. And there's people that eat that stuff up, and there's other people that won't do it. If they don't do it, that's fine.
And that's fine. Yeah, that
You know?
is for sure. I heard your speech on the major, Zach.
Yeah.
I think it was the THP episode. I think you were talking about it, the semester enrolling and opening everything. And I was like, man, if only I were a few years younger and weren't already like fully managing a shop and breeding facility and I had some time, I would have hit
100%.
you up right away. I'd be like, Zach, sign me up. Here's my checkbook. Here's my account. Sign me up. Like for sure. And it's not that I feel like I'm too old to go back to school. It's that I just don't have the time.
I know all about that, dude.
But I'm so grateful that somebody like you exists. I mean, there are people like Lucas right here. We're following in the footsteps that if it had existed in my timeline, I'd absolutely been on that track. And I think it's wonderful. And I think it's just a sign of the times. I mean, herpetoculture is growing to an unprecedented point. I mean, innovation is, there's no ceiling to it. The knowledge is just growing and research is, there's no cap to it. So I think it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It's cool.
And
it's cool to see.
I just feel so lucky about the timing of it all, right? Like,
I
will never
timing is everything, dude.
Just like being a miserable field biologist driving up a hill to get cell service to call Zach for the first time. And I think I pretty much was just like, please help me.
That's kind of how it went. It's like, I don't know who you are. You sound cheerful and you need a friend.
Yeah. Oh man, I just know the internal struggle that I was going through while I was like finishing up my undergraduate degree and volunteering at the zoo in Santa Barbara. And this program had existed and I hadn't known about it. I mean, definitely trajectory would be different, but it would just been along the same thread. And I'm not regretting anything that I've done, and I'm not going to take anything back. But I'm super excited to see what the future holds for that program, for Lucas, for other students involved, and what that's going to mean. Because I think your idea of incorporating it potentially into some sort of herpetocultural certificate, some weight and validity, maybe with AZA. I think that's the avenue of the future right now. Herpetoculture needs to gain some public eye respect in a big way. And I think academia is the most unignorable way to do it because worldwide academia is respected in that way. And I think right now you guys are you're setting the standard of what can be done, and you're reinventing it. And I think
we're giving it a good.
It's the most exciting time to be in herpetoculture. Changed my mind, right? So
absolutely. Well, while we're on the subject, Zach, do you want to talk a little bit briefly to the listeners of this if they are interested in a master's program? You want to do your little thing?
My infomercial?
Yeah. I mean, it worked on me.
Do it. Let's get some more of the next generation in. Let's bring some people in.
We do have this master's degree. It's completely online. So I'm in West Virginia. Lucas is in San Francisco, basically. Literally two sides of a continent. And he's my grad student, and we're working on a master's thesis. It's not you can go just take courses if you want to do that. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to do a thesis. And the nice thing about me is that when I got my PhD, I did not want to get a PhD. I had a master's degree, was happy as could be here at West Liberty, making a barely livable wage, but that was cool because I was teaching. And then somebody walked down the hallway and was like, yo, you have to have a doctorate or else we're not rehiring you next year. And I was like, okay. So I went down there, but that's critical to this conversation because I understand from personal experience what you have to do to go back to school and do a degree remotely at the graduate level, which is a little bit different than the undergraduate level. I actually think it's easier to do it at the graduate level than it is at the undergrad level.
I would agree.
But so we do a lot of latitude shifts and figure out how to make it work. But basically, the way that it works is that you take classes. If you want to work in a zoo, you have to take classes in birds. You take a mammalogy class. You take a herpetoculture class. I teach that one. That's the ology sequence. You have to take a statistics class so that we're actually pumping out people that if they throw the crap at the wall, they know how to analyze that data. That's important. And that does experimental design and things like that. It's not like the worst graduate level stats class, but it's doable, but it's that's all I'm going to say about that. So then we have other courses though that are like key to animal husbandry. So like you have to take animal nutrition. if you do the MA option. We're about to maybe change the curriculum up, maybe, and make that a little bit more, give a little bit more freedom to the MSers that want to do that. But like in that nutrition class, we talk about like, people always talk about like, you feed rats for this and mice for that. Dr. Greathouse literally talks about the nutritional qualities of a rat. He talks about what they are at a pinky, at a weanling, at a small rat, medium rat, jumbo rat, post-breeder rat. Like,
beautiful.
We cover all that stuff. So you understand what you're doing with the food. Like before this whole thing came, I was trained as an ecologist. I did not know anything about animal nutrition. And now I've done a deep dive on that. And like, I did not realize there's a lot of difference between 100-gram mouse and 100-gram rat. Like they are not the same. And then you add 100-gram chick and you got a whole different set of macronutrients.
Yep.
So, but we cover that stuff. Parasitology is a class. So you learn about the things that are in there. And then we don't do the vet school thing. We're not about like treating them, but at the same time, we will talk about like panicure and what it is and what it targets. And then flagell, what it is and what it targets. And teach you a little bit through, well, we haven't figured out how to do this, but we're working on it right now. Like how to have labs with fecal floats and things like that. But like literally, if you do this, so if you're like even in the private sector and you want to be a full-time breeder forever, and you're entertaining the idea of maybe trying to like get into AZA, you're going to learn all the AZA stuff, but you're also going to learn all the complex biology that's going to totally make you a better keeper in the end. And then we do a lot of forums. So the fun, like we love the forums. I make people read journal articles. That might be facetious. So you got to read like 3 journal articles that are from the field of herpetology. And then I always try to get my students to like read various papers in herpetology. And then like, how does this apply to herpetoculture? And part of the reason why I take that approach is it's that credibility angle that we have to accept whether we want to or not. We have to be able to have conversations with people. And if if you start talking to a herpetologist, like a state agency herpetologist, and you're able to talk about ecology and life history and niche dynamics, like all that kind of stuff, and you lead with that instead of like what morph of milk snake you have. I work with these people all the time. The second you start talking about morphs to most of them,
they're gone.
You've lost all credibility because what they see in a morph, we see a pretty snake. I'm not pooing on morphs. I'm telling you the perspective. I've had the people tell me is that they're like, well, don't you have to like inbreed the shit out of those things to make them look like that? I'm like, yeah. Weren't there issues with that? Yeah. Why do you do that? Like, because these people are trained in conservation where like you want diversity of genetics. You don't like, you want strong populations. And it's fine that this is where the two disciplines differ. But if you understand their world, you can talk to them and then maybe get them to join your world. And that's what like a graduate degree is all about, is like learning how to communicate at a higher level. And that's why I love the ZooSci grad degree. Like last semester, when the world started exploding in my universe, I was like, oh God, I got to grade forums. And then I would like go into the forums and then I'm just nerding out with my students. It's just like, okay, I don't have to grade forums,
I mean, just to jump in too, I don't know how you graded all the tests because like a finished singular test was like 50 pages sometimes.
Yes.
I'm sure Brian's was like 70, but
well, I had a student turn in an 83-page test and I was just like, this is bigger than a master's thesis. Like, hell. Anyway,
crap.
Well, when you're in this world that I live in, you read a lot. So you learn how to like, it's not that I sit there and I'll fully admit I'm not reading every sentence, but it's more like skimming. And then when you start to pick up like grammatical errors or something like that, your eyes like start, catching those immediately. Yeah. And then you kind of hone in, but no.
Never found one of those in my papers. I know it.
Never.
Not once. Not once.
Not once.
I like his confidence.
Yes. But no, I think it's it's a great thing. But part of the reason why I was like entertaining the idea, like, would a certificate in herpetoculture work? Is if we go the certificate route, you don't have to have a degree. And I talk to a lot of people who are like, I want a degree, but I can't at this point in my life. But they want to learn formally. And that's where a certificate program's perfect. There we go, Eric. So like you do that, and then you're also not just going to learn about herpetoculture. You're going to learn how we read these papers, how you read the like paper A, B, C, D, E, generate an idea and write about it. Like there's actually a way. It's just like in sports, you learn how to do a play, or you learn, whatever through practice and or playing a guitar. Same deal. The academic process of writing a paper is just like that.
Right.
But you got to be taught how to do it, and that's why we have academia in school.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to be taught by that. Scott Eiper is a beautiful example. Like I respect that guy tremendously. I was talking to him yesterday, and he's just fantastic. You can totally learn this stuff without school. I will fully say that as the guy with the doctorate.
Right.
It's 100% doable. What the school does is it helps you acquire the skill set to write papers, to publish, to think critically. That's what school does. That's what, like my PhD, I didn't really learn that much biology in my PhD. I learned how to write with my PhD. That's what I learned in that. I learned how to talk to people with my PhD. And being brutally honest, I learned how to manipulate people with my PhD. That was the other thing, which is actually a skill set that proves to be quite handy. So, when you're like at the mercy of a committee and they're like, you're going to do this for one more year. And you're like, yeah, no, I'm not. You learn how to like inception people so that this should just come to a freaking end. So, anyway, but all of that combined, I think that's why either a certificate program or a master's degree or something to that effect, it'll help you. A lot of people are like, oh, they think they're better. I don't think I'm better than anybody. You can go F yourself if you think I'm better than you. I know I'm not better than you. I just had opportunities you didn't. That's the difference. So I want to give you the opportunity.
Right.
The end, done.
Love it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
love it.
It has you personally and the program have absolutely changed my life, and it's been the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done in academia. I've always done decent in school, but I've never liked school, and I told myself I'd never go back to school, and the only reason I did was because of finding you. So thank you.
Well, thank you,
sincerely.
It means a lot to me. That's why I do this.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Anyway,
now I'm done.
Okay.
What a way to end. I love it.
Yes.
Love and happiness stuff.
Wow.
Well done. Well done, gents.
Yeah.
But yeah, folks, if people are listening and they're on the fence, definitely give it a try.
Yeah. Give it a whirl.
What's a little debt? No,
We're all going to be in debt anyway forever.
Trust me, I'm planning a wedding. I know all about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know you have to get to another podcast.
Yes,
so
give the man time for dinner and
the
bathroom
rounds.
break.
Nice. Appreciate it.
All right, let's close it out. If you want to find out about anything with us, MoreliaPythonRadio.com has all the podcasts, everything you want to see, learn, know, blah, blah, blah. If you want to get in touch with us, info@MoreliaPythonRadio.com. That's all I got.
Boom. My name's Lucas, CentralianExotics.com. Selling snakes and picking up poop. That's what I do. Good night, everybody.
Nice. For me, you can find me on YouTube just under my name, Riley Jimison, or on Instagram and all the other socials under Riley's Reptiles. I did get a store put up on Teespring, so you can find that under Riley's Reptiles store on Teespring. Nice. If you're looking at the icons and you're like, why does he only have a blue shirt? Click it. There's lots of colors available. Everyone's like, what the hell's up with these random colors? Click the item, see all the colors available. There's a lot of cool stuff. I was bored one day. Just have at it. I got my logo redone digitally. So been a long time coming. I've got stickers too. I will be rephotographing some of the animals remaining from last season to get those put up on Morph Market, hopefully in the near future. So we'll have some babies going up for sale soon and lots breeding for this season. So the landslide of baby pythons will keep coming, hopefully. And Crebos and rainbows.
Ooh.
So that's all I got.
Excellent.
Very cool. I guess if you want to find me,
go for it.
I'm Zach Loughman at Facebook, and then Dr. Crawdad, Zach Loughman Instagram, and then you can, if you search me online, it's kind of funny because like 3-4 years ago when you would search my name, it was like crayfish. Now you search my name and it's like this podcast.
False water cobra.
Pretty soon it's going to be like snakes, and then so anyway, but no, you can, if you find me online, westlibertyuniversity.edu, I'm there, and you can email me at zloafman@westliberty.edu. And in all seriousness, like Lucas said, anybody that's interested in that grad degree needs to reach out to me, because I have openings for the herpetoculture lab on campus right now. I'm looking for a kid, and you've heard about the project, so sky's the limit. It's pretty awesome. So that's what I got.
Boom.
Yeah. All right.
Very cool.
We did it.
We did it.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good
Thanks,
night,
gentlemen.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.